broken system, chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
All right. Looks like we're live.
Hey, and welcome to the first episode of the Bullpen. We are having issues just like Rumble seems to be. The streaming software is having some weird stuff going on. Carrie Smith should be joining us shortly. And yeah, thanks for coming to watch here, because I know everybody's got a lot of choices tonight. And hopefully CNN doesn't screw with us too much. So, yeah, there's going to be a new show that is going to be airing typically on Sunday mornings, and it'll be me and Little Chad and occasionally some guests. So, how you doing tonight, Little Chad?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm looking forward to watching this with friends instead of just getting frustrated by myself. So hopefully we'll have a good time. We've got our bingo card ready to go, where I'm keeping track of how many ones we can check off between each commercial break, so that that'll be a good time.
And we're already having issues.
Yeah, it's like you looks like you dropped out for a second.
Yeah, I was trying to get your audio back.
Oh, did you lose my audio?
Yeah, the second it transitioned screens. So apparently we are sticking on this screen the whole night. Even though we've got a bingo card thing, maybe I'll just add it to the screen when we're ready to show it. But
Yep.
yeah, we got a lot of people in the chat already. Sanding Monkey's been here for a while. We got Boosh in here. He's letting us know that Rumble's acting up. Of course, Slender Dad's modding for us. FKHC. Southern Bell's here. Bad Take Bojan. Davina Duckworth. And I think that's everybody. So yeah, this should be interesting. What are your predictions for how you think this is going to go tonight?
I mean, I'm predicting that we're gonna have one guy wired up like Cornholio on an Adderall to try to make sure he gets through things. And I'm actually contrary to everyone else. I think the mics being muted helps Trump because one of the groups that he's trying to just keep in his voting block are the suburban moms, and they're the ones who, if you look at historically, like after debate kind of polling, the ones who get most offended by someone like talking over somebody or being rude in that perceived way. So I think that's going to help them. I think we ready for me to turn that audio on.
Just about. Let me get Carrie in here.
Oh,
hey,
Hello.
Carrie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I wore my best top hat for the
I
occasion.
wore my best hat ever.
It's a great hat.
Thank you. So is yours. And once again, it's just too hot to wear the jacket tonight. So
Yeah,
we're gonna do this a little bit more casual. So Carrie, what do you expect out of the debate?
I expect a total clown show. Although I think I came in when you guys were talking about some of the stuff we've heard that they're going to have a 1 to 2 minute delay and they don't want people streaming it and all this other stuff. The 1 to 2 minute delay is interesting because they could, and they can turn his mic off. So they could edit out or turn his mic off for some of the funny comments from Trump that I'm expecting.
Yeah, and without an audience, that'll be much different because he doesn't have the audience to play off of.
Yes.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to watch it as much as we can, but we are going to have to pause to give commentary every now and then because that's part of being transformative. So, Chad, if you want to bring up the volume, we'll listen to the rules of the debate, I guess.
Microphone is muted. He will be difficult to
And everybody let us know how the audio
listeners.
levels are, please.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no
all right, I'm watching the chat to see if we're getting feedback on the volume.
With campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to
Oh, good. We're getting sounds all right. Audio's
now, please
fine.
Welcome
So
the 46th
good.
President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Oh, he's doing the old man walk. That's not so good.
Yeah, they didn't hop him up with enough stuff.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
I mean, the real question is, which version of Biden did they send out here tonight? Which body double?
That's true. How bad is your job in your life if you have to be the body
Gentlemen,
double
thanks
for
so much
Biden at
being
this
here. Let's
stage?
begin the debate,
Right.
and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy.
Oh, good.
President
They're not
Biden,
lying and
inflation
saying
has
democracy.
slowed, but prices
Right.
remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased.
Oh, that is low.
Yeah.
What I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was critical. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right.
What?
The
Bingo.
economy collapsed. There were no jobs.
Bleach.
Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do was try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out
Maybe a little bit more volume since you can't talk.
800,000 new manufacturing jobs.
Yeah.
But there's more to be done. There's more to be done.
You know, dry mouth is a standard side effect of medications and drugs.
Where the kitchen table,
Yep.
the things weren't
Especially
able to
when
be
you
met
have
during the month.
dentures.
It was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing.
He's
the
just
price of a whole range of
mumbling
things.
a bunch of
That's why I'm
stuff.
working so hard
Do you
to
see
make
how
sure
rapidly he's
I
getting
deal with
things
those
out?
problems.
This is definitely
And we're
Joe
gonna make
Biden
sure
hopped
we
up on
reduce
some
the price of housing
stuff.
We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over.
Wait,
The
cap
combination
rents?
Of a record than corporate
Corporate
greed is the reason why
greed
we're in this
about
problem right
rent?
now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where
Most landlords are
if you
not
had to
corporations,
look at all
they're
that was done in
individuals.
his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos.
Literally
and so we put
chaos.
things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we now we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue. For
I almost
many
feel
people,
like Trump is
to
just
$15
giddy
for-
at waiting to respond to this
an
one.
insulin shot as
I
opposed
always
to $400.
feel like
No senior has to pay more than
would-
$200.
it would be
for
hard
any
to
drug,
attack him
all the
because
drugs
it
they
feels
could
sorry
need to
for
be
him.
next year.
Well, I mean, if you're a
And the
special
situation
counsel,
is
that's
we're
what you
gonna
say in
make
your
that available
report.
to everybody, all of
I
them.
felt so sorry
So we're
for the
working to bring
demented
down the
old
price
man
of
that I
around
wouldn't
the
charge
kitchen
him.
table, and that's what we're going to get
Yeah.
done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our
Not
country.
gonna lie,
but
Trump sounds a
other
little
than
bit
that,
tired, too.
We had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back
I was
jobs,
waiting
a bounce
for
back from the
him
COVID.
to say that.
He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Hit him on the
Well, it's the
economy
greatest
all
economy in the
night.
world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world.
Oh, whatever.
And, you know,
So
What?
the
ignorant.
fact of the matter is that
Who are you going to
we find
believe? Your
ourselves in a
pocketbook when he
situation
was
where
president, or
his,
me?
His economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term.
If
He's
I
the
was
only
an
president
advocate
other
of
than
the
Herbert
income
Hoover who's had
inequality
lost more
issue,
jobs
I would point
than
out
he had when he
that it's
began.
way
Since
worse
Herbert
under
Hoover.
Biden
The
than
idea
it's
that he
ever
did
been in
something
the
that was
history of our
significant.
country.
And the military.
The
you
only
know,
person close
when
was
he was
Carter.
president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where.
Oh, did it?
you
Does he
had
really want to
the
bring up
notion that
Afghanistan?
We were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century.
I
that
can't get over
doesn't
the
have any
that the economy's
this
great. I
decade
saw
that
Zuby
done any
tweeting today about
troops
how a Subway
done
sandwich
anywhere
is
in the world
$20 now.
like he did.
Yeah, $5
President
foot
Trump,
long
I
is
want to
now,
follow up if I
what,
can.
a $10
You want-
6-inch?
To respond to him?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you a
$5
follow-up. You can
foot
do
long
whatever
is
you want with the minute that
$12
we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many
He
others. in
did
all
it when
fairness.
he was
We've already
president his
done this.
first term,
Just
and it
force
was
them to pay us a
wonderful. The
lot of
prices
money,
didn't
reduce our
go up
deficit
for us.
tremendously,
They went
and
down.
give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
He got out and
President
recreated
Trump,
ISIS
over the last
and Al
8
Qaeda.
years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt.
Which
former
one of them
President
dealt
Trump,
with
many
a
of the tax
pandemic?
cuts
Yeah,
that
look
you
at those
signed into
wild
law
country
are
shut
set to
down.
expire next year.
Did you
You
see
want to
his
extend them
face,
and go even
Biden?
further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The
Fact check
country
true.
was
Every
going
single
like
one of
never
the things
before.
he says.
And we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in
All right,
this
pause
block.
it real
President
quick.
Biden, I want to
Since
give you
we
an
have to
opportunity
pause every now and then.
Yep. All right.
So one of the other things that Trump did was filled the national oil reserve at the lowest cost that we've had in decades. And then Biden spent it all just to get costs down for this election. I mean, the cost that we paid for the oil to get into the reserve was, minimal compared to where we are at now. And if they try to fill it now, it's going to cost 3 or 4 times as much.
It would, and they're not even going to. In some of the most recent funding bills, they are trying to eliminate even refilling and restocking our northeast oil reserve completely, which is the one he's been
as we're
tapping.
about to roll into a world war, depending on who's in charge.
Yep.
And
what
that's what the reserve is supposed to be for. Soul Assassin is exactly right. That's what the reserve is for. Is if we need to have oil and gas for war.
So first question was inflation. What do you think they're going to go to next?
Immigration.
I'm not sure. Probably immigration.
So it's being directed at Trump. If I'm predicting for CNN, I'm going to guess it'll be democracy / January 6th / being a felon. So let's see what we get.
Riots, felon, all that stuff. Yeah. All right, let's go.
Question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy.
I don't know what he's talking about. That tax cut was amazing for me.
Trillionaires in America.
That's the Democrats' line every time there's a tax cut.
Do you know how much, not just for the money, but the fact that I can just do standard deductions now and not have to spend 5 hours doing my taxes trying to find receipts?
$500 million.
The standard deduction for a married couple is like $24,000.
About his debt, we'd be able to help.
So much
make
easier.
Sure that all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with.
He's so out of it
everything
already.
We have to do with.
Man, you'd think Hunter would be better at making Biden-level cocktails.
Cocktails, yeah.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you,
we
President
beat
Biden,
Medicare?
President Trump.
Right.
I don't even know what that
He beat it
means.
to death. They're destroying Medicare.
Nice.
Because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he's right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country.
Trump jumped on that
in the
so
last 4
perfect.
years
It was
is
great.
not to be believed.
Oh, and
Foreign
look at
countries,
Biden's
I'm
face.
friends
He's
with a
trying
lot
to
of people.
process.
They cannot believe what
What's
happened.
happening?
He's got a blue
States of
screen of
America.
death
We're no
error
longer
happening
respected.
inside his brain.
They don't like us. We give them everything they want,
He just
and
looks
they think we're
so
stupid. They think we're
sad
very
and
stupid people.
incompetent
What we do
and
for other
just not
countries, and
presidential.
they do nothing for
Well,
us.
the thing is, for
What
a
this
State of the
man has
Union, you can
done
pump him up.
is
All he has to do is read a
absolutely
teleprompter.
criminal.
Here, he has to actually
Thank you,
pay
President
attention
Trump.
and try to
Right.
respond,
This is
and he
the
can't
first
do it.
presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
Oh,
This morning,
abortion.
the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions.
That would have
to
been my
continue in
second guess
Idaho,
on where they would go to
despite
try
that
to
state's restrictive ban.
get after
Former
Trump.
President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex.
This is what we were talking
51
about
years
last night
ago,
with
you
incremental
had Roe
steps
v.
towards
Wade,
getting
and
rid of
everybody
abortion.
wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states.
Interesting
This is
choice of
something
words,
that
killing Roe v.
everybody
Wade.
wanted.
Yeah.
Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was
I'm not sure
an end
throughout
result
the
that was a little
world.
bit more liberal than you would have
I
thought.
mean, the best
Kansas, I
people.
would
He
say
has
the
the best
same
people
thing.
telling him.
Texas
I've got
is
the
different.
best-
Florida is
the best
different.
people.
But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like
Oh my
Ronald
God, the
Reagan,
face
I believe
Biden
in
is
the
making as he's
exceptions. I
talking
am
about
a
this
person that
is
believes. And frankly,
priceless.
I think it's important to believe in the
He's
exceptions.
got-
Some
it
people,
looks
you have
like
to
he's
follow your
listening
heart.
to
Some
an
people don't
earpiece.
believe in
He's
that.
obviously
But I
got a
believe in the
pre-canned
exceptions
abortion line
for
that he's trying to
rape,
remember.
incest,
Just wait
and
for
the
it.
life
He's
of
going to
the
have
mother.
some
I think
sort
it's
of
very
like
important.
in quote
Some
unquote
people don't
zinger
follow your
to
heart,
try to
but
get
you have to get elected also.
Trump on this.
And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and
Perfect
even after
framing.
birth. After
This is
birth, if you look
exactly
at
what
the
every
former governor of
Republican should be
Virginia,
doing on
He was
abortion.
willing to do this. He said,
That's
we'll
the
put
moral
baby
high ground
aside,
you can get
and we'll
people
determine
behind.
what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe.
Roe got overturned by
that was-
Casey in
that's
the
this
late
idea
80s.
that they're
That's
all
another
against
thing
it
they
is just
always.
ridiculous.
Never mind.
And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help.
Oh,
The
he
idea
just said that it was
states
a
are
him
gonna do
doctor.
this is
Only
little like
him
saying,
doctors
we're
can
gonna
decide.
turn
That's rather
civil rights back
sexist
to
of
the
Joe
states.
Biden.
Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's
What
the
is-
deal.
Wait,
Does this
what?
have to
What
do
does
with
that have to
abortion?
do?
Young
Like,
women
why
have
would
been
you
raped
bring
by
that
their-
up if you're
by their
Biden?
in-laws, by their brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Wait,
There have
what?
been many young
Please stop.
women murdered by the
But-
same people he allows to come.
You
across
open the
our
door.
border.
Like Trump
Here
is
he
going to
goes.
We have
crush
a
you.
border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many
Just give.
presidents
I mean, he's
had tried
framing
to
it.
get it back.
If you keep saying
I
it
was
enough,
the one
people.
to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the
I
people.
just can't believe
and that's
Biden
where they wanted it. Every
Went from
legal scholar
abortion
Went
to
from
wanted
that to,
immigration
like-
on his own.
And he literally
Staying on the
said,
topic of
a young
abortion,
lady who
President
was
Biden,
raped and
7
murdered by
states-
illegal immigrants.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
This is
And
the
you
same
blame that
topic.
on me.
7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can
they're
obtain
gonna ask
an
him this?
abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a
Good
pregnancy?
job,
I
Dana
support
Bash.
Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First
3
time is
trimesters.
between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state.
He's
The idea
describing
that the politicians,
the gestational period as
to be the
when
ones
doctors
making
talk
decisions
about
women's
things.
health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
We had doctors making
He
decisions.
can
One was named
take the life
Fauci.
of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take
Colorado.
it after birth.
Yep.
Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby
Ralph
down,
Northam.
then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby.
Oh my gosh, he looks so
Nobody
lost.
wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true.
Ooh,
Biden's
turned
the
his
first
mic
one who
on.
tried.
Provide
Yeah.
for that.
Well,
That's
I
not
guess
the
it's the
circumstance.
rebuttal
Only
time.
woman's life is in
But
danger.
yeah. You're
She's
supposed
gonna
to say
die.
when the time
That's the only
goes.
circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion. Period. Period. Period.
Oh,
The Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing.
A failed
We think the
abortion
Democrats
can
are the radicals,
lead to
not
the baby just
Republicans.
sitting
For
on a
51
counter until it
years, that was
dies.
the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship
After
said
it's
it
been
was the right
born.
way
Yeah.
to go.
Yep.
51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact,
What's he gonna do when Trump comes
MAGA
for you?
Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control
Oh,
the Congress.
MAGA.
I love
There's-
how all
Passed a
decisions by the
universal
Supreme
ban
Court
on
must
abortion,
go
period,
Democrat way,
across the board.
or
That's
Yeah.
it's just
6 or 7
illegitimate
or 8 or
altogether.
10 with
It's like
something very,
there's
very
no possible
conservative.
way they
Is
could
he
be
gonna
deciding
sign that
this
bill?
based on
I'll
their own
veto it.
thoughts.
He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden.
They cut off
All right.
Trump there.
Oh, I
Oh,
hit the
no.
wrong button.
Our country.
I was trying to pause it just to
Okay.
get us back. All right. So I think this was worth taking a second to talk about. Like, that was number one, good job for Dana Bash actually asking the late term abortion question directly to a Democratic politician. That's not usually how it gets framed.
Right.
But I mean, so far, 2 questions in, Biden is serving up unforced errors like it's his job. I mean,
I still didn't hear how how did he relate the little girl who was raped and murdered by the illegal immigrant to abortion?
So he just completely veered off. He was talking about abortion, and then so what he was trying to say was that Trump went to the funeral of this woman, of this young lady who was raped and murdered by illegal immigrants, and they talk about that, but they won't talk about abortion.
Oh, okay.
It was a stupid point. You don't bring that, and like it was right at the end of where he was about to get muted. So what's going to be left in the minds of
Right.
everyone listening was raped and murdered by illegal immigrants girl.
Yeah. And that was what, a 12-year-old
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a 12-year-old, and it was
by 2 men.
it was
In
brutal.
Texas.
The details of what they did is horrific. Like, it
And they
was,
choked her to death
Yeah.
and left her body.
yeah. So the idea that Biden would bring that up abortion is one of the issues where he actually has ground to hurt Trump on. If you look at polling, and
He has
just
ground to
fumbled
hurt
it.
the Republicans.
Yes,
I don't
the
know about
Republicans.
Trump.
Yeah, Trump is answering it better than any. I mean, if that was a standard issue Republican, he'd have a lot of problems with that answer. So yeah, I'm go ahead.
I was just going to say Rumble is up now. For
Oh.
those who prefer to watch it on Rumble, it is up.
And I just want to let everyone know we've already checked off the Jimmy Carter square, the inflation square.
Oh, we've
and,
got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Bleach.
I've got 5 squares already done. So,
Yeah, I wish
Abortion,
we could.
MAGA.
I wish we could share the bingo board on
Yeah.
here. If you go to our Twitter, if you go to the Twitter announcement of the show, the bingo board is there. But every time I try to switch screens to the bingo, it is cutting off all the audio from Carrie and Chad. So
Yep.
that doesn't work for me.
so all right, so this is going to be fun. We're going into a direct immigration question, and considering how terrible Biden did on an abortion question with immigration, I'm looking forward to what he does here.
Yeah, let's get it going so we
Let's
don't
go.
fall
an
too far
agreement that
behind.
Not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
No.
In addition to that,
The Border
we find
Patrol
ourselves
has
in a
They hate
situation where
Mayorkas.
when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages.
See, I don't think
making
that
sure
you
plays-
guys did
the
first.
families
No,
were
but I don't
separated.
even. I think
That's
that
not the
point
right way to
doesn't
go.
hold. Isn't
What
going to
I've
hold
done
up
since
now.
I've
Like,
changed the law.
Not with the
equation-
amount of trafficking that
I've
is
changed
being
the way it is
discussed.
now.
and when you're
We're in a
looking at
situation where
men raping
40%
and
fewer
murdering
people
women
coming
all
across
over the
border
country,
legally, it's better
it
than
doesn't
left
like
office.
hold up.
And I'm going to continue
you know,
to
well,
move
putting
the sound
people-
of-
ban.
The sound of freedom effect, too.
Yep.
The total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said. At the
They're
end
now
of that
asylum
sentence. I don't
officers,
think
not
he knows
Border
what he said
Patrol.
either. Look,
Did he said
we
it?
have the
He said he
safest
doesn't
border
know what
in
he
history.
said
he
either.
does. Yeah, exactly.
All he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it.
That's
He
everybody
decided
remembers
to
that
open up
too.
our border, open up our country to people that
And
are
Mayorkas just said last
from
week,
prisons.
we
People that
repealed
are from
90
mental
of his
institutions,
executive
insane
orders
asylum.
on the first
Terrorists.
couple
We have
weeks.
the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All
Another box
terrorists,
check,
all
Kerry,
over the
terrorism.
world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle
That
East,
is true.
everywhere. All
The
over the
amount
world,
of
they're pouring in.
People coming in
And this
from
guy
other
just
countries
left it
that
open.
aren't just
And
South
he didn't
America.
need legislation because I didn't have
Including China,
legislation. I said
Iran.
close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my
whole bunch of
presidency,
stands.
we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But
Brandon.
look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across
Hey,
the
they
border
finally called him
is one who
President
came
Trump.
along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al Qaeda person come in and his administration killed 3 American soldiers.
What?
Killed 3 American soldiers.
I'm calling it now.
That's the
They're
only
not going to
terrorist that's there.
put him
I'm not
through at
saying
the
that
convention.
No terrorist ever got through, but
This
the
was
idea
done
we're
this
not getting
early
our prisoners,
just to
we're
test to
we're
see if he
welcoming
was
people. That's simply
cognitively
not true. There's
To
no
see if
able
the
doubt.
to
drug
do
cocktail
this.
could work enough
Once again,
to
he's
handle it.
exaggerating. He's
He will
lying.
not make it through the convention.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic
mass deportation,
operation
another
in
box
American
check.
history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are
Oh,
citizens?
because if they have
and
jobs,
including
they're not
those who have
illegal.
lived here for decades? And if so, how will you
You
do
work
it?
backwards from
Just
the.
one second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And had
Meanwhile,
a huge impact on everything, not
Joe
just border,
released a
on everything.
warlord to
He's the one
Russia
that
for
killed people
Brittany
with the bad water,
Griner.
including hundreds of thousands of people dying. And also
The
killing
faces
our
Joe Biden
citizens
is
when they
making
come
are
in.
not helping his cause.
We are living right
No.
now in a
Nope.
rat's nest.
He looks
They're
like
killing our people
Grandpa-
in New York,
Grandpa's
in
lost at the
California,
mall.
and every
I've had
state in the
elderly
union, because we don't have
grandparents who went
borders
through
anymore. Every
dementia,
state
and that's
is
like
now a
tail
border.
end phase
And
Yes.
because
where
of his
you're like wondering
ridiculous,
if they're going to
insane,
recognize
and
you when
very
you visit.
stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're
his
reading
face
it
when
like
he
these
heard
3
that.
incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country.
And he brought it
we're
up, and
literally
Biden brought that
an
story up, so
uncivilized country
they
now.
can't deny it
He doesn't
happened.
want it to be. He just doesn't know.
Right.
He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in
Yeah.
New York City and other places. Our veterans
One man
are
show.
on
The
street,
problem with
they're
this
dying
is
because
they're
he
letting
doesn't
the
care about our
illegals carry
veterans. He
guns
doesn't- he
too,
doesn't like the
because they said
military at
it's
all. And he
a
doesn't care
right,
about our veterans.
at least
Nobody
in
but worse.
Illinois and a few
I
other
had the
states.
highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress.
Tina Bojan,
all
this.
of the different things I approved.
He's staying calm.
They abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in.
Bush and
President
Bell
Biden.
are saying,
Very
watch
sad day.
Biden's
President
left
Biden, you have
ear.
the mic.
He
Every
looks like
single
he has
thing
an
he said
earpiece
is a
in.
lie.
Oh.
Every single one. For
Every-
example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma.
Oh my God, is he saying the burn pit gave his
going with Bo.
France for D-Day. And I spoke all about those.
Oh, is he bringing up D-Day where he pooped his pants?
I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there.
That is a lie.
Losers and suckers. My son was
that has
suckers.
been discredited so many times it's not funny.
Oh, and loser.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up.
Trump wasn't the one checking his watch every time bodies came back.
Than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia
just on one side.
It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up.
Man, Kerry, this is our best question for bingo. We've gotten like 4 boxes between this.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it. Period. That's number one.
John Kelly was not a 4-star general.
The idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's
you
what
equipped a whole nother country when you left Afghanistan.
Ever before in our history.
Well,
and got our people killed.
We count Iran with the money.
I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its 3rd year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO.
Trump wanted to dissolve NATO, and they should.
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You
Under
can double
Obama,
those numbers, maybe triple
Putin
those
invaded.
numbers.
Under Trump,
he did nothing to stop it. In fact,
under
I think
Biden, he invaded
Russia
again.
And well, he did it under
he was so bad with
3 out of 4
Afghanistan.
presidents. He took parts of Georgia under Bush, under G.W. Bush. He took parts of Ukraine under Obama, and he took
Crimea.
He should have fired those generals.
Crimea under Obama.
Well, Crimea was part of Ukraine at the time.
But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When
American
Putin
citizens
saw that,
and
he
everybody
said,
in Afghanistan who helped us.
We're going to go in and maybe take my... This is
interpreters,
his dream.
everybody
I
else.
talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money.
You know, people always try to say Trump is dumb about a lot of things, but he makes it so clear about the connections between Iran and Hezbollah and all these things and Hamas way better than politicians who've been in office for 30, 40 years.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
Oh, malarkey.
Malarkey should have been on our bingo card.
Let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two,
He's trying to bring up the sonic weapons.
100,000
I
Americans
guess.
and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where
I've been drinking, Helena.
take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine. This guy told Trump, do whatever you want, do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did.
Trump?
To Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish.
Is he trying to
Kyiv.
take credit
And
for
he, in
like
fact,
how
didn't
great
do
the
it at
war
all.
in
He
Ukraine
didn't
is
when they would
going?
Get it done.
Yeah.
And they've lost
multiple
thousands and
years
thousands
in.
of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
500,000
for-
troops?
For 1 minute, I just want to go back to my
I
original
highly doubt
question,
that
which is,
Russia has
are
lost
Putin's
500,000
terms acceptable
troops.
to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a
You need
war
a
that
strong
never should have
man to
started.
push Putin
if
back.
we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given
Pretty sure it's
$200
more.
billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that
Zelensky
comes
comes
to
in,
this
he gets
country, he walks
60
away
billion.
with $60 billion.
Yeah,
It's the
he's
greatest
used this
salesman
line
ever.
at,
And I'm not knocking him. I'm
rallies.
not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take
It's
office
easy
on
because if you
January
cut off
20th.
the
I'll have
check,
that war
Zelensky
settled.
will negotiate.
People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
And it won't cost us any more money.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the
No,
Soviet
he
Empire.
made clear
Not just
that he
Now
didn't
do
want
Hamas.
all of Ukraine. That's what he
Putin
wants.
for
And then
30
you think
years
we'll
said,
stop there?
we
You think we'll
can't,
stop
don't
when
expand
he-
NATO.
he
I
takes
can't.
line,
Ukraine?
do not
Yes.
What do
cross
you think
it.
happens to
They're the
Poland? What do you
buffer.
think they-
And we
what
agreed
do you
to
think
it in the
happens to those
90s.
NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says, he
You're
walks
saying
away.
that war will
By the
happen
way,
under Trump
all that
when it
money
didn't.
we give Ukraine,
And
from
it
weapons we
happened
make
under
here in
you.
the United States, we give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank
What?
you. Moving on
NATO's
to the
given
Middle East.
$250 billion.
In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among
was
those
that a war
held and
crime,
thought
Joe?
to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Whatever.
President Biden, you've put forward a proposal
Let's ask him
to
about the
resolve
pier.
this
How good did
conflict.
that pier
But
work
so
out?
far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue
This is the
Hamas.
underwear
Number one.
gnomes
They're the only ones standing
system
out. We're
of-
still pushing hard.
Step
to
1,
get them
take
to
underwear.
accept. In the
Step 2,
meantime,
then step 3,
what's
profit.
happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way,
We also funded the other side.
against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel.
Wait,
no one
what?
was hurt. No,
Did he just
one
say
Israeli was accidentally
Iran
They
killed.
launched
launched
ICBMs
an
against Israel.
ICBM?
We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so that's
Well, he
they're
just
two
lost
different
half
things.
of his base.
Hamas
'cause they're
cannot
not for
be allowed to
Israel.
continue. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas. Greatly weakened, and they should
By
be.
Israel.
They should be eliminated.
Not by anything
But
you've
you've got to be
Yeah.
careful
done.
for what using certain weapons among population centers.
Stand back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an
weird
ocean
pause.
separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out
I like
NATO.
the way that look is
The
perfect.
idea
Like
that we
maybe
our strength lies in our alliances
Boss,
as well.
boss look.
It may be a big ocean, but we're ever
Do you remember in history class when you learned about George Washington's farewell address and what he cautioned the United States
You have
against?
an Article 5 agreement.
Entangling
Attack on one, attack on
alliances
all.
that
You want to start
hurt
the
your
nuclear war
country.
he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places.
Now we're back to Ukraine?
He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan
not with
and
money.
South Korea.
Not with a
because
lot.
They understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021.
January 6th,
After you rallied your
Just
supporters
answer,
that
we're
day,
not a democracy.
some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally
That'll piss
mandated
them off.
counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever.
This is a
we
great
had the
way to
regulations
reframe
ever.
January 6th.
On January 6th, we
They
were
practice
respected
this
all
one.
over the world.
I'm glad he's listening,
All over
though.
the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking
He's
about.
also baiting
where he goes after his
Biden
political
too,
opponent because he
because
can't beat
by
him fair and square.
reframing the question
You have
with the
80
answer.
seconds left.
Here
My
comes the
question
convicted
was, what do
felon.
you say
Yeah.
to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and
They
worry
never
that you'll
say
do it
what
again?
he
Well, I
did.
didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically.
Yeah, that's what
and
he
Nancy
said.
Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary
Doing
filmmaker,
the documentary
like they say.
of January 6th.
But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day.
Here comes Biden with 3 people died on January 6th.
5. I think the last number
said,
he
I
said
take
was
full
5.
responsibility
That's how many they've got it up
for
to?
January
Yeah.
6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room.
If that was true, he would have been impeached for it, and he wasn't.
3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences. And say
Yeah, because they're being
that,
sentenced to 20 years
he
in
went
jail
to every
for this.
single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases.
And we all remember the
Scores
Summer of
cases,
Love.
including the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done.
The Supreme
He
Court
didn't do a
didn't say
damn
that about
thing.
Trump.
And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are.
They haven't
held
even
accountable.
released the
He
decision on
wants
the
to let them
January
all
6th
out.
case
And
that's
now he
pending
says
right
if
now.
he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically
The
two
Unselect
horrible
Committee.
Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats,
Kitzinger,
all Democrats.
Cheney.
They destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage
He baited him into
convicted felon
felon.
is the man I'm
there's the
looking at
felon.
right now.
Felony.
And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill.
I don't think
And
the
all those
voters
people, every one of
genuinely
those who
care
were
about
convicted
January
was
6th
turned
at
over
all.
desks,
Not at this
turned
point.
them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked
Oh,
him
so
those first two
overturning
Taking down
statues are
statues.
not
we had
patriots
last time
anymore?
around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What
His
are you
mic's
gonna
not
do?
on. He's not allowed to answer you, you dumb bastard.
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said
34
if reelected,
felonies.
you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents.
After
just
you
talked
were
about
already attacked,
members of the select
why would
committee
you
on
try to
January
do it
6th
to
going
people who
jail.
did it to you?
Your
That's
main
such a
political
crazy
opponent
thing.
is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my
They crossed the
retribution
Rubicon.
is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said
That one you could go with. The
that's
death
quid
at the
pro
border,
quo.
I
mean,
would not
under
have
the
gone
way
there.
they're using
We're not gonna give
RICO
you $1
against
billion
Trump, you
unless
could use
change the
RICO
prosecutor
against
having to do with his
Biden.
son.
Right,
man
but
is
that
a
goes
criminal.
directly
This
against
man, you're lucky.
the Supreme
You're lucky.
Court
I did
case
nothing
right
wrong.
now
We'd have a
of
system that
presidential
was
immunity.
rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have
I wouldn't have
said-
gone there.
I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two,
Come back with,
the
I got
idea that
impeached
you
for
have a
what
right
you
to
did.
seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has
You
spoken
did.
like that before.
You did.
Number three,
You sent the number 3 of the
crimes you are
DOJ to
so
go
charged.
work
Most
in
of
New
the
York.
most of the
How
prosecutors
many
that have been
billions of
elected by
dollars do you owe its
with
whole
George
families
Soros's help
for-
said
for
that exact
molesting a
same
woman in
thing.
public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the
I
night
think that counts
you
as
did
Stormy
while your wife
Daniels
was
reference, so I'm
pregnant.
going to check it off.
I'm
What
pretty
are you
sure he
talking
just
about?
defamed Trump.
You have the morals of an alley cat.
I don't believe Trump
minutes.
You
was
don't have
ever
a right-
convicted of molesting anybody
Number
on
two, that
public
was a
streets.
case that was started.
you don't have a
Or
right-
in
They
public.
They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've
Yep,
ever taken
that's
in the
true.
history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his
All right,
political
we're about to
opponent
go to
'cause he
commercial
can't
in a little
win
bit.
fair and square.
Thank you,
I'm
President
voting
Trump.
for the
President
felon.
Biden, you have said,
Yeah, me
quote,
too.
Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more
What?
they know about what he's done.
That's a
There's a
terrible.
lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming out.
I'm going to make
What?
sure he has
He's
more
got
cases.
a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died.
Oh,
I
he's gonna
decided
do the Charlottesville.
in Iraq
There's Bo
because of
again.
Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches.
We're gonna go with very
singing the
fine
same
people
anesthetic
again.
file
Yeah.
They sang when back
I
in
like that
Germany.
Snopes just
And what
fixed
did-
their
and the
fact
young
check
woman
on that,
got
like,
killed. I
last
spoke
week.
to the mother, and they
It's
asked
one of the
him, they said,
biggest
what
lies
do you think
he
of
has
those
ever
people?
told about him.
People who, the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic
No, what he
bile,
actually said
carrying
was,
swastikas?
except for the
Fine people.
neo-Nazis,
They
Yeah.
should be totally
there were
condemned.
fine people on both
I'd
sides.
like to know what they are.
That's what
It's
he
been
actually
debunked
said.
so many freaking
This guy has no
times
sense.
We've
in
watched
8
it.
years.
We've watched it with our own
President
eyes,
Trump.
but the left
Jake,
won't watch
both
it.
of you know that
Yeah.
sir has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that, sir. He just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville.
Look at
He didn't
Biden's
run because of
face.
Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened. All you
No,
have to
it,
do is look
watch
at
the
what it
video.
What a freaking idiot.
Yeah,
And the
all you
idea
got to do
that
is watch the
somehow
video.
That's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president.
Nice, Tom.
Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated.
Well,
We
that's
saw
gonna
with our
stick
own
with
eyes.
me,
We saw what
Special
happened on
Olympics
January
Biden.
6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying.
I think it is a
his own
bold
vice
move for a
president. Look,
Democrat
there's a
right
reason
now in
why
this country to try to
40
be
of his
flipping the
44
anti-Semite
top
script.
cabinet officers refused to endorse him this
yeah.
time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Because they're rhino ass.
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential
All right, let's just mute it in the background.
All right.
debate.
Carrie, is it going how you thought it would?
I mean, basically, it's really hard.
Basically.
I started looking because I saw Randy in the chat had said that Frank Luntz that his panel of undecided voters over at CNN, it's not going well for Biden. And I looked at his profile, and he said the focus group basically they're turning against Biden not because of his policies, but because of his presentation, and that they're
Yeah.
really disturbed by his voice and appearance. And I think that's natural. You should be disturbed by his voice and appearance. He's mumbling. It's hard for me to follow what he's saying because he's stringing thoughts together rapidly as if he memorized them and then is just reciting them. And then there was that weird pause when he ends because he got it all out like A, B, C, D, F,
Well, he
I got it.
obviously got coached because Biden is known for starting numbered points, and that's the way he keeps things somewhat, coherent in his jumbled mind. He'll always start with, well, number one, and then he'll go to number two, even if it's not connected to number one. And he'll go through a list of numbers. He's eliminated the numbers, but he's still just giving you jumbled thoughts.
Yes, it's all jumbled. And it's like he's just spitting it out by rote memory a lot of the time, and then it's hard for your brain, your ear. It's hard to decipher what he's saying because he's not doing the pauses that come naturally when you're actually thinking about what you're saying.
Right. As for me, yeah, this is exactly how I thought it would go. The State of the Union is a different thing than a debate. And yes, they can pump him full of drugs for a State of the Union, and he can get his breaks while they clap for 45 seconds between each sentence, and he's reading a prompter. It's basically a reading test. This is going to get him removed as the candidate.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot
That's
of...
why we have this debate happening this early.
I'm flipping over to Twitter, and I'm seeing a lot of people like, I didn't think that was a serious thing, but I'm more and more thinking that, Biden gets replaced.
It's definite at this point. There's no way they can run him.
Oh, the Border Patrol Union put out a tweet. To be clear, we never have and never will endorse Biden.
You mean the amnesty officers? Because that's what he called Border Patrol. Amnesty officers.
I know. I just like that the Border Patrol is fact-checking Biden in real time.
Yeah. Well, if we just hit go live, we can get it back to live because they're back from the commercial break and we can catch up a little bit.
Cool.
More for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
Actually, you could pull it
He
back a
caused the
couple,
inflation.
like a minute.
He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very...
Again in a second term.
There we go.
President Biden.
Thank you.
While black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed
My personal
that you
thought,
haven't
Soul
made more
Assassin,
progress?
they're going to replace him with Hillary.
They made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we find
the wages of unemployment are the lowest.
Americans, and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude
terrible
to keep
corporations
people
that
out
are
of
the
their
ones
houses.
doing it.
And in addition to that, we
No
find that
Fortune 100 CEO has
impact
donated to a
on
Republican this term.
The choice that black families have to make relative to childcare.
Real Wade, I'll
is
explain at the
incredibly
end.
Difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people.
Greg
can be in
Gutfeld
in
tweeted, "This is
job market."
officially the most
So
elaborate and
there's
long,
more to be
cheap
done,
fake in history."
considerably more to be done. We've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left.
But I'm out of all the words.
So far.
I say I don't.
But Trump
blame
has
them
the
being
best
disappointed.
words.
Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyer should get a
Can be as good
$10,000
as any
tax
white
credit
family
to be able
sometimes.
to buy their first
That's what he's
home,
going to say.
so they can get started.
He's like,
I made sure that we're in
I
a
made sure
situation
Corn
where
Pop could get a
all those
house.
black families
Wait,
and those black individuals
Why should black families get
provided
a subsidy for them to be able to buy houses?
Ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And
Yeah,
we're gonna do a
look,
whole
we're
lot
buying
more
votes.
for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window.
Inflation Reduction
He caused
Act.
inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why?
Correct.
The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely
Are we
decimated.
going to pretend
COVID
didn't
decimated
exist?
the economy. What a freaking
There were no
idiot.
jobs.
Right.
We provided thousands and millions of jobs for individuals.
You didn't
who are in
provide
all
jobs.
communities, including
People
minority
went back to
communities.
work.
We made
Yeah.
sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care.
What?
This guy wants to
That's
eliminate
weird. I
it.
haven't
He tried
gotten that.
50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA.
The
again,
deductibles
and they're
on
gonna
an
try again
ACA
if they
plan
want.
are like
We find
$7,000 or
ourselves in a position where
$8,000.
the
I'm up to
idea
12,500, I
that
think.
We're
Yeah.
not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing
What?
for
We wanna
equity-
cut the cops.
Equity and making sure people
You
have
really
a
think that
shot
people are going to believe
make it.
Trump's the guy
There's a
who's
lot
asking to
going on.
cut
And
cops?
inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating
Based
effects
on
of
what?
extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes.
Okay, the
and rising sea
wildfires are
levels.
because of bad
Former
forest
President
management,
Trump,
mostly
you've
in blue
vowed
states.
to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the
Good.
police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black
I'm looking up
colleges
Sally
and
Cohn, you know, the
universities, where
liberal
I funded them
commentator,
and got them all funded,
did a tweet.
and
Trump
the
is a
opportunity
decisive
zones
communicator
with-
but lies.
with Tim,
Biden
as
tells
you
the
know,
truth,
Tim
but
Scott,
not
who's
clearly
senator,
or
did a great
assertively.
job, great senator from South Carolina.
It's the,
He
so
came to me with the idea. It was a
the
great
new thing
idea.
is
It's one of the
Trump's
most
winning the
successful
debate, but because he's
economic
lying.
development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones, and the biggest beneficiary are blacks, and that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started.
But
and
white
you haven't
leftist
seen
women
anything
really like
yet.
him.
It's a disaster.
Really like him.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers
We had
ever.
the best water.
And we
It was the
did-
best water.
We were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation
And
in
has it
history.
helped anybody?
In history.
No.
We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges.
that
I
when he
came
slid
up
the
with
Green New
$50
Deal
billion
into the
for
Inflation
Yes,
Reduction
education,
Act?
historic
Yep,
black universities and
they're
colleges,
comboing
because they
the
don't
wombo
have-
combo of the
they don't have
Inflation
the kind
Reduction
of
Act that was the Green New
contributors
Deal.
that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord.
And our
I immediately
prices went
joined
down
it,
and we were
because if
happy.
we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it.
World War
Wants me
III
to
is
do
kind
all
of
that I've done.
existential threat.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster.
Wasn't this the 5-year
Everything that he
anniversary of
said
when,
just now- I'll give you an example. I heard him say
how
before
dare you,
insulin.
said that we
I'm
were
the
all
one
going to
that
be
got
dead?
the insulin down
Yeah.
for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the
Was
I
it
have the
Enron?
biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris
Because
Accord.
nobody else had
How
to
can
do
we
anything.
if we're not
So
able to- the United
why
States
wouldn't
can't
they
get its
join?
under control.
China
One of
doesn't.
the largest
China's
polluters in
building
the
more
world,
coal
number
fire
one. We're
power
making
plants right
significant
now.
progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant
Oh,
progress.
come on, bring up electric
And we
cars. I want to
continue
check
make
off that
progress.
bingo box.
We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in
training a
directions that are
youth-
gonna
it's a youth
significantly
program.
change
You know,
Oh,
elements of
creepy.
cause of pollution.
We
But
got
the
that idea
idea
for some other
that
people.
He claims that he has the biggest heart up here, and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate. I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical
So you
company
admit that he did it
cannot have to
first.
pay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way,
So every
By the
day,
way-
millions of Americans
by the way-
struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
Really?
everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income,
No,
of
you-
their paycheck.
everybody-
That is
Every
not
time
true
their
at all.
paycheck
I
was
pay
on the
almost
first one they get
20%.
And that's
from
because
18
you
years
pay
old.
the double.
The
You pay
idea
the
that
employer
they're
side
gonna- I'm
too,
not- I've proposed
because of
that.
the way it works.
Everybody,
No, that's
they
on
pay-
my personal.
The millionaires pay 1%.
I'm in the 20%
1%.
bracket on my
So
personal.
no one after.
Well, he's talking
I'm
about
not raising
Medicare and
the cost
so
of
Social Security is
for
capped at
anybody
6%
under
at,
$400,000
and
after
stops
that
at
if you get
Oh, okay. I
160,000.
thought he was
They have
saying
to pay
the
their
tax
fair
rate.
share
No,
by
the
increasing
so
from
specifically
1%
Social
beyond
Security tax
to
rate.
be able to guarantee the program.
After you make
So
160,000,
you
it
still have
stops
82
coming out.
seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing will do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He
Really?
thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security.
He's
He wanted
never
to cut
said that.
Social
He's
Security and
campaigned
Medicare both
twice
times. And that's
about
what- and if you look at
expanding
the
and making
the
sure
program
seniors are
put
taken
forward
care
by
of.
The House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports is in fact want to cut it as well.
Oh yeah, the Casey Hunt
idea
tweet. I was
that
going to bring that
we
up.
don't need to
She's
protect our
basically
seniors
admitting
is
Biden
ridiculous.
looks lost
We
and old.
put and by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And
It doesn't
amazing,
feel
as
like
I
it.
said, you're in a circumstance where
It's so expensive now.
400,000
Yeah.
people,
Like,
I mean,
and it
40
covers
40 million
nothing that I
people
needed to
without
cover,
have insurance
but they
because
made
of
us pay
pre-existing
for it. They
conditions.
You
made us
have
get insurance.
insurance
Have
in
that
name
insurance.
only.
It
Yeah.
is the fact
You
that they, in
you have an
fact, are
insurance
part of
plan,
the
and it might
ACA.
not cost you
And
anything
by the
depending
way,
on
the
your
other thing
income.
is,
But if you go
we're
to
in
the
a
doctor,
situation where it
you
talks
still
about
can't afford
education
it.
for Black
We
communities.
are
I
And you
paying.
have to.
the
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
number, the
No,
amount of
go.
I was
money
just
for
saying,
Pell
we are
Grants,
paying out the nose
another
now because we were
$8,000.
forced to
Anybody
get on
who can have
Obamacare. And then when we
$70,000
show up at the
could be able
doctor, we're
to
still
get
paying out of pocket because
$15,000
it doesn't
towards
cover
the
anything I
tuition.
needed to cover.
Right.
He just
Have you
And
looked
if you've
into-
got kids,
Thank
you've
you,
got to
President
cover
Biden.
them
President
until
Trump.
the age of
So I've dealt with
26.
politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a
With
disgrace.
2 kids, I'm about
But
3
Social
times that.
Security, He's
Wow,
destroying
Brahma.
it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals.
They
They're
are.
taking the place
Taxpayers
of our
are covering
citizens
this
there.
for people who
What
are
they're
not
doing
citizens.
to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our
They
veterans are
kicked
living in the
veterans
street,
out of
and
buildings
these
so that
people are living in
immigrants could
luxury
go into
hotels.
them.
He doesn't know what he's
Illegals.
doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are
All
not
right, I
being
think we've
taken
gotten
care of, I told you
far enough
before.
in. They're not going
By
to
the
nuke
way,
us.
when
I'm
I
bringing
said
it up
suck
from the
from roses, he said-
transparency.
He acknowledged after
Okay.
that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it.
He
It's
just
so-
now brought it
Number
up.
two,
It's so
the
stupid,
idea
too. It's
that
not
we're
even
gonna
a
be in
believable
situation
lie.
where
Like,
all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world.
Is he going to
Reason
really
why we
try
have
to
the most
tell people
successful
that this is
economy in
not
the world.
happening?
We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way,
To say
those
this right
15
after
Nobel
Trump
laureates
pointed
who
out how
talked
much
about
he
being
lies
phony,
is
those 15
a
Nobel
Amazing.
is a
laureates,
bold
economists,
move,
they all
Cotton.
said
Bold
that
move.
if Trump is
We'll see
reelected,
how that
we'd like
plays
to
out
have
for
a
him.
recession, and
And
inflation is going to
we
increase and go
know,
up.
the public
And by the way, worst
knows
president in history,
what the economy is
159
like.
Presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President
Experts
Biden, thank you so
say.
much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it,
Yeah.
and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
Look at
he doesn't
Biden's
fire
face.
people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I
His
did fire a lot. I
face.
fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp.
Let me
They were
check
no
my
good. Not easy to
earwig
fire
there.
people. They pay a price for it.
I
but they
think
were
that
no
was a
good. I
code
inherited
for
these
something.
people. I didn't put him.
Yeah.
I, didn't
I
put
need
Comey
help.
there. He was no good. I fired him.
I need my other
This guy hasn't
commercial.
fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved
fired
with
one
that
person.
the Afghanistan,
Sam, what's his face? The guy that
horror
stole
show.
all the
Most
luggage.
embarrassing
I don't
thing
even know if he was
Cross-dressing.
aware of it. I think that somebody
He
in
didn't
that
fire. Did you
agency was
fire
just
anybody?
finally like,
Did you
no.
fire anybody that's on the
Likely.
border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as
Look
you
at
and
him.
I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants
Nicholas
open
Kristof
borders.
just
He
tweeted,
wants
I
our
wish
country
Biden
to
would
either
reflect
be
on this debate
destroyed or he wants
performance
to
and
pick
then
up those
announce his
people as
decision to
voters.
withdraw from the race.
And I don't think we just can't let it happen.
Told you that's
If
the whole
he
reason it's this early.
wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut.
They had him turned
We
off from the
probably won't
beginning,
have a
Tom.
country
They
left
never
anymore.
allowed
That's
him
how
to
bad it
begin
is.
with.
He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're
It
the
would have
most
been great if
admired
they had him
country in the
on.
world. We're the United States of America.
Oh, this is the
Beyond
angry part.
capacity. We have the finest military in the history
He
of the
didn't
world.
say anything
The finest in the history
about
of the world.
America
No one
as a
thinks we're
concept.
weak.
He's talking about
No
you
one wants to screw
personally
around with us.
as
Nobody.
the president.
Number one.
Is
Number
he?
two,
He's
the
saying no
idea
one wants to
that
screw
we're
around with
talking
us as
about
all
worst
this shit is
presidents.
lighting
I
up
wasn't
around the
joking.
world.
Look it up
Right.
and go online.
As BRICS is signing up countries every day to leave, and Saudi Arabia left the petrodollar
They had
behind.
meetings and they voted who's the
I know
worst
that's not coming up in
president
this
American
debate, but it's a
history.
big deal.
One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all.
Do we really care
of
about
American
academics
history.
voting on
That's
who's
not-
Right.
the best or worst president?
That's not conjecture.
Newsflash:
You can argue they're
academics
wrong,
don't
but
like
that's what they
Trump.
Newsflash.
Yeah,
On the
I
other
would-
side,
I feel like Trump is
Biden
gonna,
worst president,
deal
Carter
with
second
Childcare.
worst. I mean,
Trump-
we can do
yeah.
the same freaking thing.
Trump can body him on that line, basically like, I'm glad that you're admired by professors. I'd rather make sure people can afford groceries.
Or single parents
Yeah.
to be able to go back to work, and we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country.
True, Slender.
The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle class people.
How?
I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody.
He's the only one who cut him.
$400,000. I didn't. But these
You
tariffs,
certainly
10%
did.
Tariffs. Everything coming in the country. You know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American.
It didn't. When he had those
We've already
tariffs-
done it.
Yeah.
Because
Costs
they're
of
gonna have
goods
to pay
went
the
down
difference
because guess
in
what? They kept
food
prices down and I
and
had
all
more
the things
buying
we're
power.
including.
You
Number
lying
two,
sack of
he's
shit.
in a situation where he
I'm
talks
getting fed
about
up with
how
him
he
now
has
saying things like
not
that.
raised-
Sorry,
Yes.
Carrie.
Me
and somehow
too.
help the
Me
middle
too.
class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want
By
a
him?
new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next
No,
10
I'm
years,
just glad I bought
which is
my
gonna
house before you took
fundamentally
office, you
bankrupt the
ass.
country.
Yeah,
You have
my
the
daughter
largest
will
deficit
never
of
be
any
able to
president in
afford a
American
house at
history.
this rate.
Number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any
Biden doesn't want us
progress
to be able
with
to
China.
own homes.
We are the lowest trade deficit with China since
You're more easily
2010.
controlled if you
Thank you,
can.
We're at the
President
highest.
Biden.
You lost
Thank you,
160,000.
President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help
Close
Americans
the border.
right now in the throes of addiction?
That would be an
who are
amazingly
struggling to
effective
get the
policy.
treatment they need?
Close the border. Say
To
it.
finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation.
This
with
format
China.
is devastating
China's
for
gonna own us if
Biden,
you
and
keep
by
allowing
format I
them
mean being
to
awake
do what
after
they
9
do
p.m.
to us. They are killing us as
Who
a
said
country,
that?
Jill. And you
Blake
can't
Masters.
let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before. Any
Say
country,
China the
in
way I
every
like
way.
it.
And then we had to get tough.
China.
And it was the drugs
China.
pouring across the border were it started
border?
to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever
the
seen.
best
the way
dog.
they
We
can
have the
spot it.
greatest dogs.
We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers.
Oh,
have
Bad
you
Take
seen the
Bojan
numbers
coming
now?
in with the
It's not
haymaker.
only the 18 million people that I believe is
Did you
even
see that
low
one in the
because
chat,
the
Brahma?
gotaways. They don't even talk about gotaways.
Which one?
From
But
Tina,
the numbers
Bad Take
of
Bojan.
the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women.
That Hunter
coming
accounts for
across our
50% of
border. The
opiate
worst
consumption
thing
in
I've
the
ever seen.
United
Yep.
States.
At numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure
For a
we
while.
use a machine that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money.
Except for all the
That was
people
part of this
Except for
deal
the
to put
people.
coming in where there's
bipartisan
not a
deal.
border crossing.
More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more.
You know, if you
numbers
stop
of-
the people coming
of
over the
agents,
border,
more
that would
numbers
help
of
too, Joe.
All the people at the border.
You know, if you inject
And
that
when
bleach
we had
into the
that deal
fentanyl, it'll
done,
make it
he
go away.
He called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me."
Because you were going to let
No, he
4,500
never argued
people
it's not a
per
good
day
bill.
still come
It's a
across,
really good
Joe.
bill. We need those
It was a
machines.
joke.
We need those machines.
So
We're
put 'em-
coming
send 'em
very
down there.
hard in every country
Don't, you know,
in
maybe
Asia in
don't send a
terms of
check to
precursors
Ukraine
for
and
fentanyl.
send some machines
Mexico
down.
is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico.
To his son. It
He
pertains to his
ended
son.
catch and
also.
release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion
Because he
for
pays
5
it every
people.
time.
I got 58
Okay,
people out.
I'm going
and I
to
paid
give you the
essentially
stupidest
nothing.
take of the night from
Thank you,
Frank
President Trump.
Luntz.
Dana?
Let's
Okay.
start with
Biden is
concerns
doing
that
nothing
voters
to win
have
over
about
Nikki
issue
Haley
deal.
voters.
President Biden, you would be 86 at
You know,
the end
that
of your
whopping
second
like
term.
14 people.
How do you address
Just-
concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent
So,
half my career
Lauren
in-
Southern
in
tweeted,
criticizing
let's check
the
what Black
youngest
Twitter has to
person
say about
in
this.
politics.
And
I
every
was the second
message
youngest
is,
person ever
RIP
elected to
this
the United States
N-word
Senate.
Biden.
No, I was a lot less popular. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs.
Will
300,000
Chamberlain put one out?
manufacturing
Like
jobs.
I
More
think
investment in
everyone
America.
knows now. And then he
Over
shared the headline
million-
from the New
billions of
Yorker:
dollars in
"Why
private
Robert
investment
Hur called Biden an elderly
in
man with a poor
enterprises.
memory."
We are growing. By the way, we brought off a lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas.
God.
And to bring home
Is
a product.
he's saying that Trump
I went to South Korea.
outsourced
I convinced
could
Samsung
chip
to invest
manufacturing
Computer chips?
when he was in
United
goddamn
States.
real estate
And
in the
they're-
1980s,
guess what?
90s, and
Those
2000s?
fabs, they call them. that to
Pardon my
build these
blasphemy. I'm
those
just getting
fabs
so
pay
like,
over $100,000.
it's so
You
ridiculous.
don't need a college degree for them.
You were in the
And those
Senate
are
since
billions. About
1972.
$40
You
billion
hair
already
plug
being invested and
denture
being
wearing
built right
prick.
now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before.
It's hard when you hear somebody being honest.
You called 50% of the country basically fascist.
Yeah.
For all our problems and all our opportunities.
He said we're about to
We're the
lose
most
our
progressive country
democracy.
in the world in getting things
That's
done.
all they've
We're
said.
the
That's
strongest
all they
country in the
say
world.
is we're,
We're a
oh my
country in
God,
the
we're
world
about to
that
lose our
keeps word,
democracy.
and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, we send love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
You know who I'm not
Thank
seeing
you.
a lot from?
Former President Trump,
JoJo
to
from
follow up,
Jurors,
you would be 82 at the end of
Brooklyn
your
Dad
second
Defiant,
term.
Harry
What do you
Sisson.
say to voters who have concerns
None of them are
about
posting
your
anything at the
capabilities
moment
to
that
serve?
I see.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public.
I have the
He
best
took one.
test
I'd like
taking.
to see him take one, just one, a real easy one.
Oh,
I go
here's
through the
one.
first 5 questions. You
Harry
couldn't do it.
Sisson, 7 minutes
But I
ago.
took 2
Boom.
cognitive tests. I
President
took
Biden just
physical
told it like
exams
it
every
is.
year.
We are the most
And, you know,
admired country in
we
the
knock
world,
on
and no
wood
one wants
wherever
to
we may
screw
have
with
wood,
us.
that
Damn
I'm
right.
in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do
I'm
that,
better at golf
have to
than
be
you.
Quite smart.
I love that
and you
Trump
have to be
brought
able
up
to hit
golf
the ball a long way.
and how
I
good
do
he is at
He
it.
doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match.
No, he's busy
He
laying
can't
on
hit
the
a ball
beach.
50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago.
He
Actually,
may
I'm
be the
probably a
only
little bit
president I've
lighter,
ever seen go in
but
and
I'm
come out
as
not
good a
looking
shape as I
20
was,
years older.
Well, he's
years
also the
ago. I
only
feel very
president
good.
we've
I feel
ever
the
seen
same.
that went
But
in
I
and
took-
came
I
out $1
was
billion
willing to take a
less
cognitive
rich.
test. And you know what?
Yeah.
If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
Clay Travis
You
is
can see he
demanding that golf
6'5"
match
and
on
only
pay-per-view
225
immediately.
pounds, 235 pounds.
The match.
Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is.
Look at you
I'd be
falling
happy
over
to
on a
have driving
bike.
contest with him. I got my handicap.
Redheaded
when I was
libertarian, wait,
vice
go back.
president,
I'm invested in
down
this
to a
golf
6.
debate.
And, by the way, I told you
Josie's
I'm happy
hilarious.
to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap. 8.
Yeah, you also corn pop saved how many kids in the pool?
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
to a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of
What?
who wins?
That's a
And
bold
you will
thing.
say right now that political violence in any form is
To be fair,
unacceptable.
Bush, he did play quite
Well,
a bit
I
of
shouldn't have
golf,
to
but it
say
wasn't
that, but of course I
comparable in
believe
any
that.
way.
It's totally
This
unacceptable.
this question
And
is
if
so
you would see my
dishonest.
statements that
It's
I
a
made
loaded
on Twitter
question.
at the time,
Yeah.
and also my
It's a
statement that I
trick.
made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody.
Patriot
And I'll
J
tell
on
you
Twitter.
something.
These old ass N
I wish
words
he
are
was a
really
great
going back
president,
and forth
because I
on
wouldn't be
stage
here
over
right
their
now.
golf
I'd
handicap.
be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his
I know,
political
Bush.
opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a
MAGA.
seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are
See, I'd hit on him
insane.
and
They're
his whole
insane.
party
These are
right
wars that
there.
will never end with him.
Oh,
He
you know,
will
I
drive
just
us
listened
into
to a
World War
little
III,
snippet,
we're closer
and
to
Biden
World
did
War
actually
III
say
than
Bo died in
anybody can
Iraq
imagine.
again.
We are very, very close to World War
Earlier,
III.
he
and
slipped
he's
it in.
driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him.
Carrie
They have
Smith, you're
nothing going with
tweeting
this
while you're on the
gentleman.
show?
I
What he's
am.
gonna
I'm
do
sorry, is that wrong?
World War III.
No.
I do love that puppet does
War,
look
World
like
War III.
you just need to get the plugs on the
Him
top of the
follow
head,
and
and
then,
it's
the Jeff
Biden.
Dunham
do what you want,
puppet.
NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack
Much
on
like
one is an
Biden,
attack
that
on
puppet
all.
does only speak
Required
when someone
response.
shoves a hand
The
up. his-
idea. I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful
Really?
nation. We have wonderful it's because of the
Javier
people,
Milei?
not me. It's
I
because
feel
of the
like
Pretty sure
people
he'd say he's
who
doing a
keep
better
ready
job
to
already.
step up when we need it.
President Xi
And
of
right
China
now,
is pretty
we
happy
need
with
it.
the job
We
you've
need
done.
it
It's
to
done
protect the
really
world
good. They
because
were
of our own safety
they
as
were
a state.
economically
And again,
on the
you
ropes.
wanna have war,
Destitute.
just let Putin
And
go
you've
ahead and
brought
take
people
Kyiv,
back into the
make
fray.
sure
They're
they
into
move
that
on.
BRICS
See
network
happens in
is
Poland,
going to
Hungary,
get China
and other
back
places
with
along that
lots of
border.
funds.
Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election?
This is the
is
first
regardless
question
of
where I've
who
kind of felt the
Just to
bias
finish
coming
what
out
he
in the
said,
moderators.
It's such a
Yeah, they've
bias.
been good up until now.
Russia.
This is like,
They
it's a
took a lot
loaded
of land
question.
from
It's like
Bush.
asking, when will you
They
stop
took a
beating
lot
your
of land
wife? You're
from
loading
Obama
the
and
question
Biden.
with an assumption
They
of
took
some
no
kind of
land,
guilt.
nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games
Hey, he's
with
making
me.
the
He knew
point I
that.
did
I got
earlier.
along with him
You
very
took
well, but he
land
knew
from
not to play
Bush. You
games.
took land from
He took
Obama.
nothing
You're
from
taking
me.
land from Biden.
But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started.
You know how you
ever
keep Russia from
with
getting in a
me.
war? You drill for
And
oil
he's
in the
going to
U.S.
take
and then they
Ukraine.
can't afford it.
And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad.
You have an
They've
actor as
lost
a
so many
president.
people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the
Ukraine.
golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election?
He doesn't care for your
regardless of who
question.
wins? Yes or no, please.
It's a dumb
If it's
question.
a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but
It's a
the
perfectly
fraud and
fine
everything
answer,
else was
rational answer.
ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a
Yeah.
news conference on it in a week.
Let's
Or
not
we'll have
pretend that
another one of
81
these on
million
in a
people
week.
voted for this
But
idiot.
I will absolutely. There's nothing.
Getting
I'd
back to the
rather
golf
do.
debate,
It, would be
it
much
was
easier
great
for me
that
to
Trump
do that
fact checked him in real time and
than
got Biden to admit
running
lying
again.
right on
I
stage. I'm a
wasn't
6
really going
handicap.
to
No, you're
run
not. I seen you
until
swing.
I saw the
Well, I was an
horrible
8
job he did.
handicap.
He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit.
They
State
kicked
or
it out
local.
on
They
standing.
kicked it out on
douche,
standing on almost all
which
of
is
them.
which is the judicial
This
system's
lie
way of not
about
making
somehow
a decision.
There's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything.
This is so
you can't
crazy
stand
because
the
they
loss. Something
said
snapped in you when you lost last
2016,
time.
and
We'll be right back.
when it comes to 2020,
with
like
more from the CNN presidential debate.
they didn't
right.
accept the results of 16. They challenged it all the time. They were,
Well,
even
no.
Michael Moore was making speeches about
They challenged every election they lost since Bush v. Gore.
yes, they never
Yeah.
trusted.
2004, 2004.
And they
people
challenged it
forget
in the
they
same
challenged that
way during the counting.
Yep.
I mean,
In
not
fact,
during the actual election night counting, but the electoral college counts.
And there's also, people forget, there's legal precedent from 1960 with the Hawaiian electors where they did the same thing Trump
Sent
was
us
doing,
a separate slate.
where they sent a separate slate and it was accepted by Congress.
Yep.
So this is the craziest thing, that we have made illegal a thing that actually happened previously in presidential elections is ridiculous.
Yes.
All right. As soon as I see it go live, we're going to click live so we can catch back up. And that is right now. So we should be
We are
actually
live.
live now.
Yep.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements.
Right in time for their
as
closing
predetermined
statements.
by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2
Oh,
minutes.
Biden goes first.
We've made significant
Did he
progress
just
I think he just
squeak
pooped
or
himself
fart?
again.
by President Trump.
I think that was
last
partially
term.
poop.
He just
We find
swallowed.
ourselves in a situation where, number one,
Oh, does that
we
mean
have to
every
make
time
sure
that
that we
happens,
have
a
a fair
Chinese
tax
agent
system.
gets their wings?
I ask anyone out
Yeah,
there
let's
in the
listen to him,
audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug
But
prices
anyway.
with big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have Childcare. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for Childcare. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are
We're going to
causing
do
health
something
problems
about what we're
for
doing.
people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
I take
Thank
it
you,
all
President
back,
Biden.
Kerry.
President
After
Trump,
that
you now have 2
coherent
minutes
statement,
for
I'm
your
definitely
closing
voting Biden.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world.
Weak men lead to hard
What we did
times.
was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have.
I thought she was telling Biden to stay with us.
I mean, he's going to stay on stage now because
he's gonna turn to the opposite direction and try to shake hands with the ghost.
Look how he couldn't even cap his pen. Like, it was difficult for him to just do that. This is
President Biden, stay with us.
all right. I'm just watching because I'm waiting for him to like fall at the podium.
Why? What are they doing?
Yeah, I think
Were
Trump
they
doesn't
supposed
want
to
to
go
be
to commercial?
Yeah, I think now that it's there, it goes.
All right, cut him.
The president and former
Right.
That was way worse than I thought it would be. Oh,
Oh,
yeah. There's Carrie. We're
wrong
trying
cut.
to. Yeah. Can you hear me
Hey,
still?
Carrie. Yeah.
Oh, good. It's working this time after the screen share.
No, I was just trying to remove your. We didn't change the scene, so.
Okay. So, oh man, I have. You're right. I am every tweet is like this is actually a Democrat coup to replace Biden off the ticket. This is like the narrative. I thought that was kind of an outside joke, but
No,
it's
I
like
was
100%
dead
the
serious the
take.
whole time that I was saying it.
I enjoyed the thank you so much for inviting me on the show, because this is the kind of thing I would not want to watch by myself, because I would just be getting annoyed and not, I want to be able to laugh with people and point out the spectacle of it. And I do enjoy the feeling on Twitter during times like this, or X, when there's jokes cracking and it's like everyone's like one-upping each other. I kind of love that about it. And I have to take those small pleasures, because otherwise I think this is just a travesty that this is where we're at, that these are the two candidates we're choosing between, and that one of them, the one who's currently the president, comes across like an incompetent, um, aged man who's not fully there, and who's his, like Randy said in the chat, his mouth being open and looking off into space, and he looks like he's lost, and that doesn't inspire confidence. That doesn't inspire respect for the office of the president or from other countries. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just shameful.
Yeah.
Drudge
And
report.
I'll explain. Let me explain why I
yeah.
think it's going to be Hillary. So Kamala Harris is next in line in her mind. Biden would have to step down. You have to get rid of Kamala Harris somehow. The only person she is going to defer to is Hillary, another woman. And in their minds,
She's owed.
Hillary won the other election. They do believe that Hillary did beat Trump. When everybody says, well, I mean, Trump beat Hillary, they don't believe that. Hillary doesn't believe that. It's going to be exactly what Carrie and Lindsay said. It's her turn. They are going to turn to Hillary, is my call. Because Gavin is not there. You're definitely not going Stacey Abrams. Who else are you going?
Stacey Abrams.
I mean, who else is there that they can turn to? It's not Kamala. Everybody knows that. She's completely insane and can't do anything correctly. But you have to have a woman take over to get Kamala to kind of defer and say, okay, whatever.
Yeah, Helen in the chat says the Dems didn't like Hillary either, and that's true. But I mean, I wasn't out of the woke cult at that time, and I didn't like her. I kept going back and forth on whether or not to vote for her. They don't like her either. But the establishment, I think, they think she's owed it. She's due it.
Do.
This is,
it's her turn again. And Soul Assassin, Michelle Obama, no. Bongino was on the Secret Service detail. There's nothing that Michelle Obama hates more than politics. She wanted out of there every single day that they were up in the White House. There is not a chance in hell she runs. They keep floating that idea, but there is no chance in hell she runs. And that's from people behind the scenes.
She also hates the Bidens. Hates them. Because Michelle Obama was really good friends with Hunter's ex-wife. And you can see how she's been treated after she was jettisoned from the Hunter, situation. And that is not sit well. Michelle Obama didn't even really come out to campaign in 2020 for Biden. She doesn't like him. She doesn't like the Biden family. She doesn't like their whole stuff. And so I don't think even if she was inclined to be political, I don't think she'd want to be the one who rides to the rescue of Biden. So.
Yeah,
Plus,
go. I've already said my piece on it.
I think they have to pick someone also that they think is, if they rig it, that that it's believable that this person is presidential and that they won, and that it will be more accepted by the narrative. And if you're choosing from among those possible people, it's going to be Hillary. They already thought she won once. They think it's possible.
They think she won the first time. That's why I think they will turn to her again. I don't see another option. Newsom, I mean, some Democrats like him, but he's just not there. Name recognition and everything else is not there. They need somebody to go against Trump. It's not going against Ted Cruz or, John McCain. It's going against freaking Trump. They have to have somebody that they think is a powerhouse in their party. And they are delusional. They will go with Hillary, in my opinion. But Biden's cooked. I mean, there is no objective way that anybody could say Biden did well in that debate. I look forward to looking at all the post-debate reactions and stuff, but there is no way anybody can run cover for that guy after that debate. He was gone the whole time. He rambled. He didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He got fact-checked by Trump so many times it was freaking ridiculous. And I will say, CNN actually did a fairly fair debate. So good on them.
So I'm listening to I've popped on the CNN after commentary, and man, you can always tell when a Democrat does really bad when they're trying to like find any little thing. Oh,
Sorry.
that's all right. That's CNN
It's
complaining
okay.
about
I've had
Trump.
cars going behind me all night, so.
But there's people who like it's the Democrat like side on CNN's review was like he wasn't super coherent. There were some issues. We've got a lot of people who are being reinforced now on thinking he was already a bad like candidate, and their only thing they're trying to hang on Trump is that he might have been a little too personal with his attacks.
Right. I'm looking at Van Jones right now.
Yep.
Look, I love Joe Biden, but that was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Van Jones is one of the ones who lets the mask slip the most often when you listen to these commentary. Like if you listen before he gets like the talking points, Van is one of those guys who doesn't like immediately get on to like he doesn't have a sense for what he should be saying. So if you watch him immediately after an event, he'll give you like a real like impression of it. Then by the next morning, he'll know what he's supposed to say and kind of start shifting. But it's like I do use that as an example because he's usually like yeah, right now he's saying that's not what we needed from Joe.
No, it needed to be a lot more.
It's not just panic, it's pain right now. So yeah.
And since the debate is over, I want to thank everybody who was here tonight. I know there were a plethora of choices, and yes, I know what a plethora means. So thank you for spending it with us. I understand if people want to go watch reaction to it now, that kind of stuff. We'll probably go for a little bit longer, just kind of giving our thoughts and commentary on it, because while we did interrupt quite a bit, we didn't get to put together real coherent thoughts. So we'll probably go around the horn and kind of see what people think, see what predictions are from here. But thank you all for being here. It was a great debate night, at least for one side.
Oh man.
Yeah, what are your overall thoughts, Carrie, and what are your predictions for what happens from this debate, I guess?
Well, my overall thoughts are the things I tweeted about, which are, which I'm sorry. I just can't.
I don't care if you
I can't get over the Charlottesville lie. I can't get over it because that was one of the first. I've seen other people say this too. That was one of the first lies that I discovered was a lie. When I was leaving the woke cult and I was starting to leave my brainwashing and everything, and I actually looked at the transcript of the speeches, which are both available. I tweeted them out, the August 14th transcript and the August 15th one. And then I watched the video and I could not believe how they were just boldface lying about what he said.
No context.
No context whatsoever. And all you had to do was watch it or read it. And so that to me is just astounding. And I think it speaks to the fact that he knows his audience very well. Biden does. He knows that they're not going to watch it. They're not going to read it. Or if they do, the ones who do, he's trusting that they have such bad character that they won't mind that he's lying. And that's just terrible. Like, I don't know. That just bothers me. that is still that they're still trotting that one out. I don't know. It's just like,
So do you believe he's going to be the nominee?
I don't know, actually. I know we're all talking about if they replaced him, who would they replace him with, and speculating. But I actually think things are so crazy now. We're living through such absurdities where sociopaths just say, like the Charlottesville thing, just say a lie that's easily provable, and they just keep repeating it enough, and it's fine. So I don't think they may not even care that he looks like a bumbling idiot. They may not care at all. He may be the perfect puppet for them in this state that he's in. So I don't know if they're going to replace him or not. What do you guys think? You think it's definitely going to happen?
I think I'm looking at a clip of Dr. Jill Biden having to walk Joe Biden down 3 stairs after the debate, and
Just
that
now?
yeah, it was shared on Twitter. We didn't watch that part, but I mean, he can't even go. Like, she walked him out, and he was doing the feeble, like being led by an arm to go down 2 stairs. You saw it like at the front of that debate stage. It's like nothing. That image is, that's like the subconscious image that's going to be left. I do think, I didn't think before, but I'm buying into it now, that this debate was way earlier than they're ever held, and the only reason to do that would be able to satisfy every state's requirements to change the name of the candidate before the ballots are printed, because a lot of states have a lock-in date.
Yep.
Where once if the candidate, once that official candidate after this date can't be switched out, and that usually is 180 days before the election day, which would be in August. So they've got now a full month to pull the bait and switch at their convention.
I don't.
Yeah.
I still am not convinced they'll do it though. I don't know. What do you think, Drama?
There's not a chance in hell he can run. I mean, at this point, they are committing political suicide if they run him. Everything tonight showed that. And I don't even think that's being partisan. I think that's just looking at him on a stage and saying, he's not there. I mean, what do you think the chances are that the second debate happens? We'll go with that.
When is that one scheduled?
It's like another month from now, or a month and a half. I think there is a 99.99% chance that debate gets canceled unless it's with somebody other than Joe Biden.
Yeah. Oh, here's
There's not a chance in hell they will let him back on a stage.
To your comment earlier about Harry Sisson, it's 10:40, about 10 minutes ago when the debate wrapped up. All of these MAGA Republicans who are making fun of President Biden for having a stutter are disgusting. How dare you make fun of a speech impediment? It's a slap in the face of millions of Americans who have one or know someone who does. Have some damn respect. That's his. That's the defense they're going with.
That's what he's going with, huh?
That's what he's going with.
Because I didn't even hear the stutter tonight. I heard a whole lot of slurred speech, like when I have too much bourbon.
Oh, Donald Trump Jr. just shared out the clip of Biden having to be escorted off stage. That's gonna be in combination with his performance, that is gonna leave the impression that I think puts me into the camp that they're gonna replace him.
I don't know though. If I were betting, I might bet against the odds here, because I think again, I don't know. We're in such a dystopia now, Ministry of Truth kind of world, Brave New World, and I mean,
yeah,
sociopaths.
Well,
They maybe don't even think it matters. Like they're just.
I know your feelings on elections, so yeah.
So they're like,
what gives me pause is the Lady Macbeth leading him down the stairs. Dr. Jill Biden is having the time of her life, being the first lady who's really running the show. So
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, or Woodrow
Wilson's wife
when he went into the stroke coma, where somehow she was able to decipher what his jabberish means, and so she even signed bills. Like, so out damn Spot until you pull her away. She might make him. I mean, she's the one who ran him last time when he was in no shape to do it.
Well, she's as bad as what's his face, Fetterman's wife.
I mean, she's as bad as Hillary was in the 90s.
Yeah, must have power.
Yeah.
I think if they run him, the only way they win is by cheating the election. I think what the Republicans have to do at this point, you got to fight fire with fire. You got to play by their terms. The rules right now say that in quite a few states, if not most states, ballot harvesting is perfectly fine. Do it. Go early vote. Stop doing the Republican thing of voting on day of election. You've got to get the vote in. You can't chance that there's a snowstorm or your kid gets sick or whatever the hell. You've got to get out and vote. That's the only. They changed the rules in the last election. They don't have a pandemic this time. They may create one in the next few months, but in fact, they probably did just yesterday. This whole ruling or this whole thing with the Surgeon General saying that, guns are a public health
crisis
issue. Yeah, that is. New Mexico's governor tried to use that to try to basically put the state into martial law if she wanted to.
And yeah,
they may use that because that was the trial flag. I mean, that was the balloon floating up there, seeing how it goes. It did not go well, but they'll try anything at this point. They know that they're in big trouble. If Trump is up 18 points in Iowa, add 5 points to that because Republicans are always undersampled. I mean, you're looking at monumental numbers, like Reagan numbers right now.
It's crazy though, because I'm convinced we had those monumental numbers in 2020 and they just overnight just made it up, like, oh, look what we found. And they've accepted that, people, the media, everyone ran with it. Like, this is the big lie. Right. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Here's what I do think. If Trump somehow wins and becomes president, now this is really my conspiracy theory hat. Yeah. If he wins and becomes president, I think it's because they let that happen.
The vice president choice is key because Trump, more than most, needs assassination insurance. If he picks a Tim Scott and he wins the election, he's out within a month of being inaugurated.
Well, let's go there next. Who do you guys... We'll start with you, Chad. Who do you think is going to be the VP nomination?
Who do I think? Who do I like?
Who do you think?
I think that the full court press is on for Scott, but I think Trump's smart enough not to do that because Scott gains him nothing, and plus Scott also supported Haley early on. And as much as Trump is happy with people who come back into the fold, but as long as they don't say too much about him, I think he's going to hold that against him and keep him off. I think the top two picks seeds right now are JD Vance and Ben Carson would be the two I think are kind of 50-50 shots for who's actually going to get it. I would actually prefer Carson because I'd rather keep JD Vance in the Senate because Ohio tends to nominate schlubs, which is why Sherrod Brown is still polling ahead of the guy they have right now, because JD Vance speaks Trump and that wins in Ohio, and Rhino people is who they keep nominating generally. So it's harder to get a real Republican in the Senate than it is to get one as vice president and waste that. I do think there's a dark horse chance for Youngkin if they think Virginia is actually in play, but that's fool's gold, and I don't want him to do that. So I would avoid that. Plus, I think Youngkin is also very establishment friendly and would not be good assassination insurance.
What do you think, Carrie?
I think
if you have an idea.
Well, I don't have a good idea of who it's going to be, no. But in terms of who I think would give him an advantage somehow, would help him in the game, I think Ben Carson would be good because, and I see Randy saying he's a bore and not an attack dog. But here's the thing. The left,
So
what
is
they
Pence.
see, yeah, but what the left sees is a black person. The woke left that's everything they look at is through the lens of race, sex, sexuality, identity. So they see a black person. So there's going to be some people on the left who their eyes are open to the hypocrisy of the left because they're going to start to see their own side attack him and use the N word and show how racist they are, that's going to come out. If Ben Carson is the VP pick, that's going to come out. They're going to call him stupid. I remember when he ran for president, our side, the left, we called him like a moron, not a real doctor. Like there were all these things that the left was saying. Like it will get nasty about him.
Yeah, look at Larry Elder in California. People
Yeah.
showed up in gorilla suits to
Yeah.
to protest him.
Yes.
And it's like, oh yeah, you guys are the ones that are racially sensitive, huh?
And that will open the eyes of some of the people who are still in that cult, who are actually not evil people, just brainwashed by an evil belief system. I know that to be true. Like some of those people will wake up if they see that.
I also think Carson's biography makes him more steeled against those kinds of attacks. Like he didn't come from any kind of privileged background to get. I mean, he was I think if I remember single mother from Detroit, right? And worked his way up to be neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
And so if he's on stage against Kamala, I mean,
his problem is he's boring. That is his problem.
Well, luckily, the cackling queen will bail him out by laughing so inappropriately.
Yes.
And word salad.
So
yeah, she'll start going, Ben Carson separated conjoined twins. Ha 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 ha.
Remember when Ben Carson was for busing?
She also he trumps her. She still has the woman card to play. Like again, looking through the lens of the woke left, she still has the woman card to play. They're gonna count it up and say, oh, she's got more oppressed group status than him because she's a woman and a woman of color, right? But if it were just being judged on the of color, he puts her to shame. So
he's actually more black than her.
He's more black than her by their judgment.
By their judgment,
and they really do look at stuff like that.
Yeah. So for me, I think Ben Carson would probably be a good pick. I don't think there's a chance in hell he picks him.
Why?
It will be J.D. Vance or Vivek. Because
get the teal money.
It'll be J.D. Vance in my mind because Trump wants a younger person that he can mold and control. And J.D. Vance hasn't been political long enough. And J.D. Vance has flipped 180 on Trump. He was completely anti-Trump and now is for Trump. So Trump knows he can mold him. He wants somebody he can mold. But really, the hot take pick, he picks Donald Trump Jr. and says, try to assassinate us both.
What state does Trump Jr. reside in?
Doesn't matter. They've got enough money they can move wherever the hell they want.
You know what? He should move to Montana.
And there's houses in every freaking state that they want. I mean, it doesn't matter what the rules with all of that. And I know people keep saying Marco Rubio because he speaks Spanish and he should just do his vice presidency, everything in Spanish to try to get the Latino vote. No, Marco Rubio is a done politician. It's pointless. Vance is who he can groom. I mean, in the way that we used to use the word, not in the way that we now use the word. He can groom him to be a successor.
But I don't see what J.D. Vance brings him. Because J.D. Vance, they're going to just attack the left as a straight white guy. And also he's kind of creepy looking. I mean, I like him, but he's kind of creepy looking. And,
before J.D. Vance actually came out as conservative, they thought his book and the movie based on his book was the greatest freaking thing ever. The left. Yep. They were all praising everything he said and did.
That's why true. Amy Adams was in the movie. It was an officially approved narrative film.
Yep. I mean, they may not like him now, but the thing with Vance is you've got to look at Trump's mentality because Trump's mentality is the important thing there. Trump is going to pick somebody who he can control. And J.D. Vance, he can control. He's young enough that he thinks that he can basically mold him into whatever he wants him to be. And Vance seems to be on board with the MAGA movement at the moment. So that's why I think it's going to be him. I don't think Ben Carson... I think Ben Carson's a great guy. I think he was fantastic in the last administration. I think he was fantastic as a presidential candidate. but I think he's too old for Trump to trust that he can mold him, because he already feels burnt by Pence, who is also an older guy who, let's face it, Pence never liked Trump. We all know that. Pence was, holding his nose being involved with Trump, because Pence is, this is going to be awkward. Pence is a very strong Christian, and I don't think he liked any of the things that, I don't think he liked Trump as a person.
That's where you gotta have to separate your faith from the reality of the
Right.
political situation.
And as far as I would go with, as far as Trump and Christians, David was a pretty freaking bad guy.
Yeah. And
He
moral.
committed adultery. He had a guy killed, and God still used him. So, I mean, we don't have to go into the whole religion thing on this specific thing, but I mean, the religious people who say they can never vote for Trump, no, you can never vote for Biden, because Biden is completely pro-abortion. Biden is, there are far more things that outweigh Trump's bad personality and even the adultery than what Biden has going for him.
We already have the perfect example of that. In one term, Trump managed to put enough good justices on the court to get Roe v. Wade overturned. When between Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, and George W. Bush, we should have had a 7-2 majority on the Supreme Court for the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they screwed up pick after pick after pick after pick. Now, Amy Coney Barrett has not done well this last week, and in terms of decisions. And I think that's more because the Supreme Court seems more inclined to punt on divisive issues in general. But
Yeah.
Trump delivered. And we had, if I recall right, George W. Bush campaigned as a very strong born-again Christian. And, Ronald Reagan obviously was strong with the faith community as well. And we didn't get any results. It took a dude that maybe wasn't exactly what we wanted to actually get what God would view as probably a win, right? So,
well, it's what
you
God
know
placed
the
there, maybe.
yeah, it's like the Bible verse. God chooses the foolish to shame the wise, right? Or the proud. Which one is it? And sometimes I think it makes me think of that movie Amadeus, where they portray Mozart as just this bumbling fool, but he has this amazing talent and this gift. And Salieri, the way he's depicted in that film, he like prays to God to give him that gift. And when he hears the way that Mozart plays, he says it sounds like the voice of God. And he has all this anger and resentment, like, why him? Why would a foolish fop, would you give this gift to? And it's like he chose the fool for a reason, because he's not proud about it. He's not a proud person. And Trump, I'm not saying Trump's not proud. He's definitely proud. I'm just saying it's kind of funny that it takes this big, larger than life, wrestling kind of character, this entertainment kind of figure, to actually speak some truth and do some things that are not terrible. I mean,
well, I mean, it takes a businessman to change things that is not part of the political machine.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it in chat, but I just saw the same thing Randy wanted. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC's White House correspondent, is like, two sources familiar with the situation say President Biden was dealing with a cold tonight and was not, feeling completely. I was like, oh my God.
And Van Jones 5 minutes ago on CNN calls for Biden to be replaced. It is exactly the playbook I thought they would go with.
That cold is going to morph into COVID and kill him any day now, probably.
I mean, what are the chances they 25th him before the election? Don't even let him get to it.
If
they're going to run Kamala, that's the way to do it.
That's true.
You put her in power before the election.
Then she's the incumbent.
So if they don't replace him, you asked Brahma who might be the VP pick for Trump, but if they don't replace him, who's going to be his VP?
They can't get rid of her.
Oh, they can't get rid of her.
Intersectionality. No,
Oh,
they can, but intersectionality
Right.
says you can't get rid of a black woman on the Democrat
Right.
side. There's not a chance in hell they do it.
For a second, I forgot she existed.
Yeah.
It's amazing how sometimes, we say that Hollywood is terrible at storytelling and corrupt, and then you watch Veep, and then you look at Kamala Harris, and you're like, I really feel like they nailed that one hard. Like,
they really did.
You hear the stories about how people last 1 week before they just peace out and say, I quit. I can't work with this woman.
Yeah.
I mean, Kamala, if Kamala gets nominated, I would, if I was Trump, I would immediately pull the emergency Gabby cord.
Yeah.
just to have her follow Kamala around and knife her like she did in those debates in 2020. Wear that white pantsuit, just chase her nightmares. Did you see those clips back in 2020, Carrie, when Gabby Giffords just ended Kamala's whole presidential campaign?
It wasn't Gabby Giffords. It was
not Gabby Giffords.
You mean Tulsi?
Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. Pulled the Tulsi cord. It's because she's a Democrat. I don't immediately know the name. I
voted for Tulsi.
Well, actually, Tulsi is far closer to a Republican now than most Republicans.
Yeah, I would love Tulsi to come in as Secretary of Defense if Trump wins. That would be my dream cabinet spot for her.
Still got a problem with her. I mean, she's reversing on the Second Amendment a little bit, but she still has a problem.
Yeah, but in DOD, she wouldn't. DOJ is where you don't want somebody like that. But DOD, where she's dealing with people who are supposed to be armed anyway, she's a rank and file who doesn't want to start stupid wars. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah. Could he pick her
as vice president? He could.
He could, but she's not been mentioned anywhere. And he said that his VP pick would be in the same city with him tonight because they were only allowed 2 people at the debate. And I believe JD Vance and Vivek were there. I'm not sure who else.
Oh, the betting market on predicted just crashed for Biden. It's now 63-37.
63%. Yeah. Somebody posted that a little while ago. I brought up the chat, but yeah, it went ridiculously in favor of him. So
Harry Sisson still posting that Biden wrecked Trump. Well, at least they're getting their money's worth out of his Twitter account. Because he is clearly a paid operative. It's in FEC filings. He pretends he isn't, but it's hilarious. This is one. I know that Frank Luntz is generally useless to me, but one comment that someone in his focus group made that I'm laughing at is the expectations tonight for Biden were just to show up and look alive, and he blew it.
Yeah. Well, what they really wanted was for Trump to do what he did in 2020 in the first debate and be very overbearing and very aggressive. Trump did exactly what he had to do.
Well, the rules were actually
extremely level-headed. They were.
Yep.
I mean, they weren't supposed to be, but the way he was coached and the way he actually listened to the coaching, he stayed level-headed, made great points, and didn't go on the personal attack near as much as Joe did. And he didn't interrupt. That was the problem in the first debate in 2020. And even then, you could still argue that even though that debate was bad, if you believe that the election was not on the up and up, he didn't do that bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing that says that he did bad was that he lost the election. And I don't know that I agree with that assessment.
I don't agree. I still don't agree with that. I had some liberal asking me about this yesterday or the day before. And that, they came at me with the same, they were actually curious though, but they came at me with the same old stuff. Like it's experts say, and we know, and it's absolutely 100% true that it wasn't. I was like, how do you believe that? I'm sorry. I first of all, if you know anything about our operations in other countries and how we pull coups in other countries and we influence elections and we do, why would you think that suddenly our 3-letter agencies have ethics and they're not going to do that here and choose who they want here? But also, aside from that, we saw this unfold. Biden couldn't even fill rooms with supporters. There was no enthusiasm. And then
Right.
anecdotally, I knew tons of people who woke up, left the left, who were moving to Trump, shocking everyone. I know a progressive friend who still considers himself progressive, who, you know, is like, I felt like I did something dirty, like I voted for Trump. Like people were, it was, I didn't know anyone going the other direction.
Right.
And then that night, experiencing it and looking at the vote tallies and seeing as it all came in, I was at Timcast's live election thing that night. And I remember when everybody kind of left, you know, or went to bed, it was sort of, duh, it's in the bag. Like it was just everybody, and there was this spirit of like fun and like, and then you find out overnight, like, oh, they happened to get this crazy number of votes.
Yeah, the
late.
hockey stick.
Yeah, and it's like you really you're asking me to believe something that's just absurd. Why? Because
Yeah,
the
common
powers
sense
that be
says
say
that's not possible to
like
have every mail-in vote be
go
for
for
Biden.
him, everyone, and to believe with the lack of enthusiasm for him that he got more votes than Obama did when Obama had the most enthusiasm we've ever seen on the left. I mean, I was a part of that enthusiasm for Obama. I voted for him twice.
So
It was crazy.
what's interesting is if you're, if you study political science and you look at cases of election fraud and how they're prosecuted and proven, one of the ways that is actually accepted by federal courts is statistical analysis of, like, voting precincts. And what you see, and this was interesting, and you could look at it, and there's parts of, I think it was Ohio bordering with, was it Michigan? Where there's municipal districts like right next to each other, and the districts that were, in Ohio, Trump improved. Like, these were not ones he won, but he improved his margin from 2016 to 2020. And this was true. And they were looking at urban municipal districts, and everywhere else in the country, Trump improved his number in these places compared to where he was in 2016,
Yep.
with the exception of 10 urban zones in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona.
Every bellwether county in the country went for Trump. And this year, Biden's got 34% approval. There's not a chance in hell he pulls 81 million. And Trump, as the incumbent, pulled more than any incumbent in history. It's just not possible unless they fix it or they get another candidate. And I don't know that another candidate can fight against Trump either. But we have to be wary and we have to vote because they will pull shenanigans.
I mean, I'm just saying, pull the Democrat move: vote early, vote often.
Not vote often, but do vote early.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things one of the things, like, from Governor,
get your vote in as soon as you can.
So that's one play that Governor Youngkin did very effectively in Virginia.
Played by their rules.
He played by their rules, and so what he did is he went to the rural counties, which was basically central and western Virginia, away from Fairfax, which is northern Virginia's hotbed of government employees, and Loudoun and all those zones, and he ran up the score by margins bigger than Trump, because he knew what he needed. He was taking the Democratic playbook: register and bank early votes from non-traditional voters. You go to those places where people are aligned with your values but don't usually vote, the Appalachia zone.
Yeah.
You get them, and Virginia has 30 days of early voting. It starts in the end of September and runs through October. He got people, they were busing and driving these voters to the poll stations just like Democrats did.
Yep.
And he banked those votes, and he ran up margins where Trump was winning 70-30. Youngkin won 80, 85, 90, 10. He was, and by doing that, he offset the margins that he was going to lose by in those urban centers.
Yep. And that's where it's very important that we got Ronna McDaniel out and Laura Trump in, because Laura basically said, Yeah, we're gonna fight fire with fire.
And
We're doing whatever
Pennsylvania,
they
like,
say that they're whatever the law says that you can do. We're gonna do.
yeah, vote harvest, bank those votes.
Yep.
What you should be doing is spending, like, and then I'm sure, like, the Scott Presslers of the world, going to hunters meetings and gatherings, and like people who are hunters are more inclined to vote Republican if they vote, but not all of them like vote. Their numbers are actually pretty low, compared to other groups. You go there, you spend your money on your your, what is, I believe, I'm trying to think of what the official political science term is, like, your non-prolific voters. There's people who are like me. If they look, when you look at people's voting history, you can get this legally. If you're a pollster or if you're someone running a campaign, you can pull the voter rolls and you can see people who have voted in consistently in 4+ straight elections. Those are your highly engaged voters. You touch them last. They're voting. You go for the people who are registered but vote in, like, maybe in infrequently. Maybe they voted in 2016 for Trump but didn't vote in 2020. That's where you're going to get your bigger bang for your buck, if banking those votes early, and then your highly motivated voters are still going to show up. I mean, that's how, and that's what Democrats do with their ballot harvesting. They go to places and they just collect the ballots, get people to fill them out. The mail-in stuff really changed how they could do that. And then, of course, there's always the risk that in addition to the ones that people fill out, there's always just ones that show up, at 3 a.m. in a counting dump, which I think is what Carrie's was talking about. So I mean, the margin of cheat is generally about 3%. If you are beyond 3%, it's very difficult to stuff ballots and win an election, because you would have to cheat at such a prolific rate in the precinct you control. You'd be running the risk of having to basically have 150% voter turnout to offset the numbers that are coming from the other parts of your state. So it's really difficult. I mean, if you, I don't want to say luckily, but the Biden people and the ones who were in the last election, Trump's margins in those zones, I think he was legitimately winning, were only around 1.5 to 2%, and that gave him enough room to engage in shenanigans.
Yeah, I don't think you can overcome 8 to 10%.
No, that's so far beyond. Like, that's the measure. That's blowout. Like, that's Ronald Reagan 1984, where only Massachusetts votes for Mondale.
There's a good chance California, New York, and Washington, maybe Oregon, are the only states that go blue.
Yeah,
maybe New Mexico. I mean, there's a few, but
the fact that Minnesota is in play this early,
and the fact that Iowa is where it's at,
Iowa,
says Wisconsin is very much in play.
Iowa's, I think the last poll had him up 12, so he's probably really more up like 16, like you said.
Add 5 to anything they say.
Yeah. I think that puts New Hampshire in play. That's usually a pretty close state. Massachusetts is a safely Democrat. Maine is in play as a whole, which is interesting. Usually, for Trump, he's been able to put that congressional district in play.
Yeah.
But the entire state is actually polling much closer. I mean, when you're running politics, you want to make your opponent defend more territory, and you have to defend less, because then your money's able to do more damage.
Which is why you see Trump in the Bronx and Jersey.
Yep. Joe Biden showing up in Philadelphia is often, like, Philadelphia is the last place he needs to worry about. Like, if you look at 2020, when Joe Biden went anywhere, it was like Scranton. He was trying to basically,
it was all friendly.
He was trying to get more votes out of Western Pennsylvania, because he knew Philly was taking care of checkbox, right? They're worried about the young black vote in the urban environments. And it's not because Trump will win it, because he'll cut the margin where he might get 20 to 30% of it. Yeah. And if that happens, they're in real trouble.
Well, let's do this. We'll talk a little bit more on that on Sunday when we start the regular show. let me ask you guys this as the closeout question. Did Trump gain any voters, or did Biden just lose voters tonight? Carrie, let's start with you.
Trump gained. I don't know if Biden lost, but Trump definitely gained, I think, some undecideds and people who've been skeptical about the direction the country's headed in. I do want to say one quick thing. I was looking up these numbers to go back to 2020 just briefly. Trump doubled his percentage of the gay vote between the 2016 election and the 2020 election. He doubled his gay support, LGBTQ. He also went from 8% of the black vote in 2016 to 12% of the black vote in 2020. And there are some polls now showing him at 30%, anywhere from between 17 to 30%. He's growing in all of these so-called oppressed minority, groups that they say he's going to hurt. He's
As
growing.
the most racist man in history.
Yeah. So I just to put that in perspective, I think a lot of people on the left don't know that. They don't even know these numbers and how absurd it is, the 2020 results. But going into 2024, it's like he's going to do the same. He's going to get a bigger share, I think, of all these groups than he did in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry,
So
it was a little off topic.
You think Trump gained and Biden didn't lose?
Maybe
voters.
not. Yeah, because the people who are locked into Biden, they don't care.
But you don't think any of them will slip to, say, RFK?
Oh, that's.
You don't think there will be any? I just abstain because this guy's a freaking idiot.
It's more likely
I will go for RFK. I mean, one or the other. I think, me personally, I don't know that Trump gained. I think that Biden lost. I think that Biden's voters will be they just won't care. I mean, this is an election. They may sit out or they may vote RFK. I don't think that Trump necessarily gained from it because I don't think Trump has any more than his built-in base.
Really?
I think what wins Trump this election is that the Democrats just cannot support Biden the way he looks.
Well, that's actually the George W. Bush playbook from 2004. You have two things that will get people to motivated to vote for you. One is because you put forward an agenda and position they want to vote for, and two is to be better than the other choice. Like to depress turnout and depress investment in the other one. So I think I see what you're saying.
You have to have excitement, I don't think people are excited about
what
Joe Biden.
This debate didn't necessarily win. It's not going to convert Democrats to voting to Trump.
No,
it's probably, it will help with independents. I think independents who are maybe on the fence will, and it's mainly because Joe Biden looked so terrible.
And Trump looks so level-headed and not the attack dog Trump.
Yeah, and Trump was, and people still have memories because it was just 4 years ago of how good they were doing before COVID. And it's still there. So I think that helps with the independents. But I think what Biden's performance did do is it depresses, like they're already having trouble getting young Democrats and, people motivated to vote. I think Brahma brought up during the debate, his answers on Israel and Palestine are actually very problematic to get that group. Like they're not going to vote for Trump. But
he said flat out he's full on for Israel, and that is not where their party is right now.
He said that he's going to give them all the guns and weapons they need, and that's not where they wanted to be. I think they don't. That's just if you look at that, the similar analog would be 1972 and 1968 when Nixon was running against in the backdrop of Vietnam. Obviously, Nixon was not going to be the choice of like the hippie movement anti-war protester, but the candidates that were running on the Democrat side didn't motivate those people to show up. They didn't care to vote for him. They weren't gonna. They didn't. McGovern and those guys. Nixon didn't get the young people's votes, but they didn't vote for anybody. I think that's what this debate does. It basically locks in the people who are ambivalent and says, "What's the point? You know,
I think
don't,
this will be a low
yeah.
Democrat turnout vote,
which is actually really beneficial to Trump on the fact that that helps congressional districts voting and Senate elections too.
Yeah, you take the full Congress and the presidency in a low turnout vote.
They only have to flip 2 Senate seats, and they've got Montana and I think and West Virginia are pretty solid as that happening. And they've got to defend all the ones that they have, and I don't think any of the Republican incumbents are in any real danger. I know they always want to go after Cruz, but he should still win pretty handedly.
All right, let's address this one. A whopping 0 of Democrats I have talked to know anything about the country. They hear what they want from MSNBC and CNN and reject everything else. CNN just said that Biden can't be the nominee.
Joy Reid was just on MSNBC saying that Biden shouldn't be the nominee.
Wow.
They're flat out saying he cannot be the nominee. If he's the nominee and that's where they get their news sources from, he's toast.
Oh, here's a clip. Chuck Todd on NBC. This is Biden's performance after 5 days at Camp David. That's after rest.
Wow.
So
well, if you look up, because you noted earlier, Lil Chad, that Lauren Southern had looked up, had done
Black
a Twitter
Twitter.
search for Black Twitter, and she put in the search terms Biden and NIGGA, and it came up with all this negative stuff. Like they're saying this N-word is cooked, this N-word's crazy.
R.I.P.
Okay, well, it's somebody else, John Miller, who's a host. He just did the same with Trump, and it's all positive. It's like this N-word Trump is in the zone. This N-word Trump is hilarious.
It's just like the Star Wars meme. I mean, if you convict me, I will be more powerful than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Ooh, another Chuck Todd soundbite. This Biden looks like the caricature the conservative media has been painting. You saw it before your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the difference between State of the Union and a debate.
I mean,
we predicted multiple times that at the State of the Union he would look like a shambling corpse, but they were able to prop him up. But that's reading a teleprompter with multiple breaks while everybody claps for your inane, stupid ideas.
Well, don't you know, Brahma?
This is different.
He had a cold, so
yeah, he had a cold tonight. That's the excuse.
Not everybody can be Jordan dropping 40 when you got the flu.
Yep.
But Lindsay says it looks like there's going to be a civil war within the Democratic Party then, because their official Twitter account came out and said that Biden won the debate.
Yes, they did.
Ooh.
Wow.
Nicole Wallace on MSNBC. There's going to be discussion tomorrow about how to replace Biden as the nominee.
Yeah, they are in turmoil.
So that's on MSNBC. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we should probably.
That was
fun. 2 hours and 30 minutes. We did the whole debate. We did some post-game stuff. I think everybody wants to go see what's going on in every other part of the internet at the moment. So,
thanks for being our first guest, Carrie. That was pretty
awesome. Oh, thank you for having me.
I was so glad you said yes.
This is a fun way to watch it. And yeah, now I'm going to look at more funny X.
I apologize for dropping salty language when he started getting really mad. When I started,
Carrie drops plenty of salty language.
Look, I do drop salty language. I try and watch it on my own channel just because I know that some of my audience, it turns them off. But I'm not the best. I'm still working on it. I watch it around my mother-in-law too, because that's disrespectful. But
before we finish up, the Columbia Bugle just put out, it was like the Democratic response, and it's a gif of the band on the Titanic at the
playing the violins as
playing the violins as everyone's running to abandoned ship.
He won. He won. Keep playing.
Well, Carrie, what do you have coming up?
Oh man. Well, tomorrow my live show is always Mondays and Fridays at 1:00 Central, and I'm probably going to talk about this. I'm not sure yet, but I think I might pull some funny stuff about it and just have a little bit of a laugh. So join me there. Yeah.
I'll be in the chat.
Right on.
Chad, what do you got coming up?
We got the Ascendant Art podcast tomorrow at 9. You'll probably be there. We're going to be I'm pretty sure that we're going to be tearing apart the Acolyte a little bit because it was so bad, and Slender's got things to say about that. I think that Wizards of the Coast has put out even more. I think they made dwarfs gay now instead of just making orcs Mexican. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. They also made the new Paladin model based on Hillary Clinton, which is weird. Uh, so I'm sure you know how Slender is calm and even and level headed about that kind of stuff with D&D.
Oh yeah, that's why he couldn't be here for a debate tonight, because your salty language would be nothing compared to his.
He was a sailor, so it's a little more ingrained in him. And then of course we finish up. Tomorrow is going to be 90s rock trivia again, so that you can probably dominate the sphere, because that way you'll know the B-sides that I pull for that one.
I know every 90s rock trivia song. So what I've got coming up, I'll be on there tomorrow night at some point, and no bourbon and boarding this Saturday. We're waiting until next Saturday. We will hit some free agency. We will hit the end of the season, and that will be the last episode of Bourbon and Boarding on Saturday nights. But this was the launch episode for me and Little Chad's brand new political show. We will be here Sundays. I believe we've decided at what did we decide? 10:30 Mountain, 12:30 Eastern.
Yep.
And we will be talking the week in politics every Sunday, and just trying to grow this and do this in the election year, and doing a lot more analysis like this. We'll talk about what happened, and we'll talk about predictions. So it's not going to be the whole, WEF and everything. We're just going to talk about what happened during the week. I mean, yes, the WEF and the globalist agenda is a thing, but we're talking about what's happening in our, local politics here in the U.S., what made headlines, all that kind of stuff. So come check it out. We'd be happy to have all of you back. Evie Mux is saying we had 344 people across all platforms tonight. So that would be a massive record for, I think, both me and Little Chad. And Carrie, thank you so much for being a guest tonight.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I love the name Bullpen. It's a great name.
I think it'll be a fun show, and I hope people get some time to check it out Sunday mornings after church or before church, whichever it comes, time zone wise. And we will see you all soon. Thanks again for joining. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.